Councilmember Brand, Councilmember Capriolio, Councilmember Olivier, Councilmember Quintero, Councilmember Jean, and Council President Brandow.
Here. All right. Next, we're going to begin our meeting with an invocation. That's from Pastor Sandy Brown. Sandy, good to see you. From New Covenant Community Church. So if we'd stand, and when Sandy's done praying, we're going to salute the flag.
Dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this day. It is a beautiful day, a day that you have made, and we choose to be glad and rejoice in it. And Father, we ask that you would bless each and every one of these families that are represented here. And Father, as this meeting is about to begin, I pray that you would be with the council members and all of the staff of the city of Fresno. I know that the job that they do is not an easy job at all, Father, but I pray that they understand where the power actually comes from, Father. And I pray that you will give them perseverance and strength and wisdom and discernment in order to do their job. And at the end of the day, we all glorify you. We lift your name on high, and we ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Sandy. Next, we have a presentation of the Spca Pet of the Month, and that's Councilman Capriolio. And Talia, you're bringing up Marley, I believe. Is that right? And so Councilman Capriolio is going to probably adopt Marley himself, would be my guess.
Morning.
It's not quite a tiger, Councilman Capriolio.
He's referencing the fact that I've battled a couple of tigers in real life and survived. But Marley looks pretty mellow. He looks like a pretty mellow dog. How you doing, Marley? Hey, tell us a little bit about Marley.
So this is Marley. He came to us as a surrender a few weeks ago, so unfortunately his family wasn't able to care for him any longer. So we had him under our care. He's of good temperament, good health. He's very friendly. Right now he kind of wanted to get away from me a little bit, but generally he's very playful. He's just a little nervous. There's a lot of people. But he's a really good dog. He's good with other dogs, and he is good with other cats, so he's a really good dog. And our adoption fee is only $45. We actually have a special for the rest of December. It started on Black Friday. So this is Marley, 1 year old. He's a Chihuahua Terrier, your common breed here in the Valley.
Thank you. And could you tell us where you're located and how people can come and visit and see Marley and other animals there?
Sure. We are on 103 South Hughes behind the Belmont Cemetery. You can also check out our animals on our website at ccspca.com. And if you're interested in volunteering, we have registration on January 10th at 11 a.m.
And the registration is for
volunteering. So if anybody's interested in volunteering and helping out at the shelter, we have registration in January on the 10th.
And what can they do to volunteer to help? What are the different tasks that you'd like to have people volunteer to help you with?
Okay, certainly. So we have three levels of volunteer service. We have the junior program for the 8 to 13, the 14 to 17 youth work experience program, and then the adult program. And then some of the tasks might include like dog walking, socializing with the cats, might be working at events and different things like that.
And you can use all the help you can possibly get.
All the time. Yes.
And is there some form of recognition, a certificate, or they can do community service for their high school or college, or just giving back to the community?
Yeah, so we do have opportunities for most age levels, and we don't take court order at the moment, but we do take, if it's like school hours, things like that, then that's totally fine.
Sounds fantastic. That's why you're such a great organization. And I think one of my colleagues had a question. Does Marley have a cousin named Bob, maybe, or no?
We have some alike, but this is Marley, yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. And Marley, thanks for being here, bud. All right. I think he's ready to go. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you, Talia. Our next item, Councilman Zhang and I are going to come down to the podium, and we're going to recognize the 2014 Make-A-Wish, Make a Difference Day sponsors and the volunteers. And so, Councilman Zhang, I'm going to join you down there. But after that, Councilman Zhang and I are going to dismiss to a little meeting over here with the sponsors, and I'm going to miss council comment opportunity. So I'm going to make a council comment right now, and it's just really a reminder. It's about next week. We have a public hearing at the convention center. I need as many people that want to participate in that to know it. It's about the general plan, and it's going to be at 5 p.m. at the Convention Center, Exhibit Hall 2 and 3. So I just wanted, I'm not going to be here for council comments, but that's really important that people know we're going to have a public meeting over at the Convention Center next Thursday at 5 p.m. So, Councilman Zhang, I'm going to join you right now.
All right, you can push it now. So, you know, folks, that this was my last year doing Make a Difference Day, and it's been 5 incredible years. And so I thought that that our activity went pretty well, and I really didn't want it to kind of see it stop. And so it was really important. And you know, I would talk with a couple of council members, and Council President Steve Randall say, heck yeah. Well, he probably used a different word, but, you know, wanted to partner up. And I said, well, what a wonderful thing, because that means that, you know, our Make a Difference Day gets to continue. We served 4,000 kids. And if you include parents and everything, well, sorry, we served over 1,000 kids, but if you include parents and all the spectators that come, it's about 5,000 that comes to Chichansee every year during this time. And so a lot of those kids have never been in the stadium. And so it's a wonderful thing, and the good thing about our kids is that, you know, they're new, they're recycled new just about every single year. The longest they can stay is probably I've seen 2 years at the most, at the age of 5, because, you know, we want them coming in just to have an enjoyment. But without you know, the activities, I think we lose a great opportunity to show our kids and families what the downtown is, our stadium is. But to make it happen, it takes a lot of our friends and our sponsors. And so, you know, this year we got a couple of new ones, but to have the sponsors continue to support this event, it's been very gratifying and humbling as well that they're willing to invest some money to make sure that the activities that we provide for all of our families that come through is free. You know, they get free T-shirts, free lunch, free breakfast, whatever we can do. And then this year we were able to give them some free medals. And if you guys can just see their eyes, they're out there playing, and at the end of the game they get free medals. They just believe that they just won the World Cup. Just having such a wonderful time out there. So that's what Make a Difference Day is all about. But now to have my council president to continue it, I want to thank him and his staff and all of my staff for doing an incredible work. And we look forward to continue to help and support you in any way in the future. But with that, I want to make sure that we get our sponsors up here first, so you get those. And if we can get the Fresno Coin Gallery, I don't know if FCNA is coming up, Anthem Blue Cross, Spencer Enterprises, Walmart, Linda Lou, Fresno Unified School District, Fresno County Office of Ed, our PG&E partners, Granville Homes. Just stay up here. Don't leave yet. We want to make sure. And then Fresno Fuego. So I want to let my buddy know, you know, we'll get you a certificate because we didn't do one specifically for you for letter. And then also with Community Food Bank. So stand up here real quick, and then I'm going to let my council president.
Oh, you're going to do better at that than I am. So do I have a few minutes to say something? All right. Let me just say something while Councilman Zhang is passing those out. This is really important to me. I got taken along for the ride on this event. This was my first time. And it might make sense to you, but I'm not much of a soccer player. But Councilman Zhang was. And he's very passionate about soccer, and he played soccer himself and very good at it, is what I've heard, the rumors. But he dragged me along and asked me to become involved. He asked me to become involved, and I thought, you know, I'll go check it out. The truth is, it was a wonderful event, and within hours, I fell in love with the concept. And the kids were excited, happy. The parents totally appreciated the fact that the city is getting involved and promoting something very positive for the kids in the community. And what I wanted to say about Councilman Zhang is he's going to be departing council soon. I think he has a couple more meetings, and we're really going to miss him. But he's termed out, and he's not going to be with council starting in January. But there's a few things that a councilman can do in their span, and Councilman Zhang will have served 8 years. But to have got this project off the ground and created and turn it into what it was today, where we're serving that many thousands of residents on one time and giving them something that creates memories for their children in our city, is a legacy that I just appreciate. And I think that we can all appreciate. So if you don't mind, I'd like to give Councilman Blongzhong a hand for all of that work. And even though I'm not the soccer player that he was and is, I saw the extreme benefit in this event. So I am going to continue that on if I have the kind of help that we have from the people that are sponsoring the event and the volunteers that came out to make it super successful. I'd like to continue that. So, Councilman. Yes, let's go down. So these are all of our sponsors of this great event.
My name is Jeremy Schultz. I'm the general manager of the Fresno Fuego, and it's an honor to be a part of the event. I've been working with Blong for 5 years now on this, and what Councilman Steve said in terms of the legacy and the memories that is serving these kids and their families, it's incredible to see these little kids walk onto the field. And I live my life in the soccer community working with the Fuego, and I hear it not only right after the event and talking with the kids, but for months and months, and even afterwards, years, they talk about the day they played in Chuck Chansey Park. And so I think it's an awesome opportunity to work with Councilman Steve and continue this event. For the soccer community, it means so much. So thank you.
So how do you follow that? But Andy Souza with the Community Food Bank.
Michelle Brunn with Granville Homes.
I'm Ruthie Quinto, the CFO for Fresno Unified School District, and you certainly can count on our continued support.
Michael Leapsh, Walmart.
Ian Cluse, PG&E Government Relations, and I'm looking forward to sponsoring next year's event as well.
Hello, good morning. Oyuki Ruby, Anthem Blue Cross Medicaid, and it's an honor to be supporting the Make a Difference Day event.
Hi, Stephanie Foster from Fresno Coin Gallery, and my son got to play one year. That was just a lucky thing, and we're happy to support next year as well.
And Margaret Buck from Pepsi Beverages Company, and we are happy to support next year as well.
Thank you. So before I get our volunteers here, Andy, the soccer group actually gave Community Bank a $100 check.
Thank you.
So, it's from them, the hard work for the kids and for the parents there. And, we try to get a little bit of civic engagement out of all the fun activities. Now, with our sponsors, you guys know, with our volunteers, we also have like 50 or so volunteers from different parts and different organizations that come in and help us. Because without the volunteers, we wouldn't be able to help and manage the 4,000 or so folks that come to Chachansey. And so we do have a couple of those volunteers there. I want to make sure that all of our volunteers, but some of the groups that we have is our fire department explorers. They're here so I can get them to come up and join the group. We're going to do a quick photo. And then I know our water conservation team from the city is here as well. And then our FFA group from Madera, from Liberty, can they come up and join us as well? All right, so we're going to try to do a couple of quick pictures, and then I'll excuse everybody, and then you guys will follow staff. Anybody else out of our group here that came out for our Make a Difference Day, please come and join us. Shorter people to the front. I guess I'm one of those. There we go. Short people in the front. We'll get it going. All right, here we go. So a couple of quick snap, and I'll let the council president dismiss us. All right, so everybody just follow Kyle. Please follow Kyle to the back, and we'll get you guys going.
Councilman Baines, can you take over for a few minutes? All right.
All right. Thanks, Council President. So now we move on to approve the City Council minutes of November 2014. Madam Clerk?
I have no changes to those minutes.
Mr. President, I have a report.
Wait a minute. I don't see the reports
is
on
it-
here, but I'll go to council. I'll go to council.
Did we miss
reports.
that part or no?
Well, Steve did it early, so I guess we can.
No,
go
no,
ahead
no,
and do
no.
it.
I'll wait.
No. So here's what we'll do,
I
because
don't want to step on anybody. Go.
it's not on my cheat sheet right here, but we'll approve the council minutes, and then I'll jump right to council comments because clearly there needs
excited
something to be said.
to
So,
make my report.
do I have a motion to approve the council minutes of November 20th, 2014? Do I have a second?
Second.
Outstanding. It's been properly moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0 with members Zhang and Brandow, Council President Brandow absent. Okay, now we'll move right into council reports.
Okay, thank you, Acting President. Members of the council, members of the public, I would like to introduce our two interns for the day. They're from the Youth Job Prep Program, and that is a program that's run through our Parks Department here with the City of Fresno. Started out as an after-school thing and then kind of evolved into the Youth Job Prep Program. We have Paulette and Lydia, right? Okay, great. And they both attend Edison High School, and I guess the name of the game is to find out what the life of a city council member is like. I guess if you could come up and each of you give us 30 seconds on what the program is about and how you became involved. Just step up to the microphone right here, okay. and why you want to know what the life of a city council member is like. So take it away.
I just talk into it?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Oh, okay. Well, first of all, thank you for letting us come into your office and hang out and eat your breakfast. One reason why I really wanted to find out what this is all about was because, personally for me, I do a speech and debate at Edison High School, and the idea of politics and even business really speak to me. I really like the idea of, besides, passing laws or opening parks or making business deals, a big part of that is who you are as a person and, being charismatic and intellect and really having the drive to achieve those goals. And it's a really great opportunity to meet people who have that drive and that intellect and want to accomplish goals like that for my community. And I'm just really blessed to be here. Thank you.
I'm Paulette Evans, and I also do debate. I was her partner last year. I have a very great interest in just speaking and intellectual type jobs as well. But for me, I'm not as sure, and I wanted to come here and kind of learn what I would be getting into if I were to pursue this type of profession. I have a varying interests. I was interested in engineering as well, so I really want to know what I'm getting into if I were to come here or just do something with this type of business. And yeah, thank you.
Go into engineering.
I hear that a lot.
Go into that. No, I mean, all kidding aside, what you talk about is true. The amount of personal growth that you go through in this occupation. I know that I came in with Oliver, and I can really say that I've grown up a lot since I've been here, and it changes you as an individual. You start to see things different, and you see the way things work very differently. It's a good perspective to have on life. So take advantage of us all. If you see us in the back, talk to us and learn all you can. We're very happy to have you here today. And Claudia, thank you for making this possible. So thank you.
Is that it, Councilmember Olivier? And before I move on to Member Quintero, I just want to say I'm very upset with you that you're poaching my Edison students. I came to your office to knock on your door when I found out you did that. Yeah, it was me, but I left because obviously you guys were in serious conversation. And the last thing I want to tell our interns is you mentioned looking at this profession as one of intellect. I would tell you that I'm not exactly sure how intellectual we really are. So you may be better in other career choices. Member Quintero.
Thank you, Mr. President. I got a phone call earlier in the week, and it had to do with the passing of one of our city employees, was Mr. Al Castaneda. Al had been working with city for, I believe, 29, 30 years. Worked in various departments of the city, and I believe one of the last ones was Public Works. But Al he started off more or less in one of the lower positions when he first came here. Went to college and pulled himself out and kept advancing. And I can tell you that he loves working with the city, and we're gonna miss him. So I just wanted to pass that along to any of the employees that had the opportunity to work with Al in case they didn't know it. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to the approval of the successor agency minutes of November 20th, 2014. Madam Clerk, any changes? All right, do I have a motion to approve? So moved. All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0 with members Zhang and Council President not on the minutes. So next we're going to approve the November 18th minutes of 2014 of the joint meeting of the City of Clovis, with the joint meeting of the City of Clovis. Madam Clerk? Do I have a motion? So moved. It's been probably moved in second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Item carries 5-0 with members Zhang and Council President Brandow absent. And there are the council member reports and comments. Next we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Madam Clerk?
There are no changes to the agenda today.
Okay, 10 o'clock, item number 2 is continued to December 18th. Yeah, I think it's highlighted in the agenda. Any other changes, council members? Nope. Do I have a motion to approve? All right, the item's been moved in second. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, item passes 5-0 with members Zhang and Council President Brandow absent. Now we'll move on to the consent calendar. All consent calendar items are considered to be routine and will be treated as one agenda item. The consent calendar will be enacted by one motion. Public comment on the consent calendar is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless requested by a council member, in which event the item will be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered as time allows. Do I have any council members that want to remove items from the consent calendar? We're going to remove it first and then we go to
the consent calendar?
Huh?
We're on the consent calendar?
Yeah.
I'd like to pull item 1E.
Item 1E, okay. 1E. Any other council members have any items to pull? Okay, item 1E has been pulled. We'll now take the balance of the consent calendar to the public. Do we have any public comment?
On this one here, this 1A, I don't see why this is a Brown Act violation, and this is in your district, and that's why I want a recall of you, Mr. Baines, because the successor agency, we're not supposed to even have that here. We're not supposed to be on the committee, but see, they're going to view this in Sacramento because I'm going there today again. And I admire Mr. Olivier because he takes time to come out there to realize we're in the Edison district. So if this concerns the Edison district out there where I live and was born 67 years ago, I wonder why we don't have a Southwest Fresno, which is by law. Sal Quintero knows this, that Southwest of Fresno is supposed to stay there by law. That's why them signs says Southeast. And I wish Fresno State quit putting these kids out here to do a man's and a woman's job, come out here to walk our district to see what goes on, where they come from, where their life come from, where their parents come. Everybody around here is immigrant. They all live in shacks and stuff. They all live in everything. But if we had our money that we supposed to have for Southwest Fresno, we would be rich. We had a thriving community. We had people everywhere, kids going to school, out in the fields. They tore it up. Put babies in welfare systems out there, cheap checks and everything, so they don't have jobs. Their party is over. United Nations got a hold to all this stuff. And the police department. They're up under investigation right now. I want them to include the City Hall, too. City Hall don't have a name. Last I knew, and it was California New Frontier, we put it there by a vote, because I fussed a long time when Dan McQuill was here. Then it was the town years ago with Avenue when we was incorporated. Then the City of Fresno right now don't have a name, so what we're doing is working illegal up under name like Mendota Dawes Palace. They have names. We don't have a name. There's something going on wrong here in City Hall. Nobody's saying nothing. And then when I see this item here come up here, it's a rescinding resolution 2006-472 and removing UUD FRE-87 from the current 3-year plan, Council District 3. It's against the law to have something in the closed session. We don't even know what this is. It don't tell you not one thing, and I'm up here, the witnesses here, what this means and what are you approving, because you don't have meetings in your district. You're not representing the city of Fresno, for the Southwest Fresno, Edison District, nobody but yourself, probably Pocket. I don't know what time it is, but I know we need representation out there, and I'm calling for your removal. Thank you, Barbara Hunt.
Do we have any other members of the public who want to comment on the consent calendar?
Morning, Council. My name is Stephen Song with the Public Works Department. I have I need to read something into the record for item 1B, as in 1 Bravo. Under environmental finding, by the definition provided in the California Environmental Quality Act guideline, section 15378, this item does not qualify as a project for the purpose of California Environmental Quality Act. Under local preference, I need to add the local preference not implemented because this item does not include competitive bid. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments on today's consent calendar, the items on that consent calendar?
Yes, I'd like to be on 1B, please. I talked on 1A. I'd like to talk on 1B.
All right. And Lee, you pulled an item? Okay. So the screen is clear. For the other consent items, we'll come back to contested consent, which is what you pulled, in just a second. So let's vote on all the items with the exception of item 1E. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Oh, I thought we had that. I have a motion. I made the motion, and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. And now we're on to contested consent, and that is the item that Councilman Brand pulled, item 1E. Councilman Brand.
Yeah, just a question for the city manager. This sale of excess property, is it next week, city manager, we're going to bring the Asset Management Act RFP forward?
Yes, the item is placed on the agenda for the 11th.
Because what this will do in the future, we'll select next week a vendor to implement the Asset Management Act that was passed in March to have a private sector broker manage city assets. I recall there's a 90-day evaluation period, and then they'll do an inventory of all the city property. And hopefully in the future, this will all be much more organized and with a lot more focus because we'll have the the people there dedicated to this. And my goal is to make the city money not only on a one-time basis on excess property, but on ongoing investment opportunities. Thank you. I'll make a motion. We approve this item.
I'll second. So we have a motion and a second, and we need to go out to the public. So any member of the public that would like to address item 1E specifically, please approach the microphone.
I don't know how you got this on the agenda, but there's supposed to be a 1-something, but it's not a 1-something on here to continue this. But this is the way you're supposed to bring things to the table. It's all written down what he wants. Everything is in order, and then you guys approve to what you see it is, or you don't approve. That's democracy. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Barbara. Anybody else like to comment on item 1E? All right, then we have a motion and a second. The screen is clear. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, then we are done with today's consent calendar. We're on to the general administration section of our agenda, and we start with item 2A. That's ID 14-580. That's the awarding a 5-year revenue contract for bus advertising services to Lamar Transit Advertising for $2 million, and that's our Department of Public Transportation.
Good morning.
Essentially, this is an item where we went out for bid for the exterior and interior advertising for our bus system. There was one responsive bidder, and that bidder proposed $400,000 per year over the term of 5 years, which is the $2 million that we're seeking your approval for.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow, you made it easy on us. All right, then I was going through my list of cards to see if there was anybody. So let me take public comment, and then we'll come back and see if council wants to ask any questions. Are there any members of the public that would like to address this item? Barbara, you didn't turn in a card for this one, but if you want to. Okay.
Mine is to be here and see that you is on yours. I'm from the community. I'm from the public. They got a voice when I'm up here. They miss me when I'm not up here. On this one here, it says award a 5-year revenue contract for bus advertising service to Lamar Transit, advertising for $2 million, RFP number 9301, Public Works. That's still not of our department, the city of Fresno. This guy, he just come aboard not too long ago, got appointed to his position. I see all this advertising on this bus. I like to know where all that advertising that's been going on these buses all these years, where did that money go? If we didn't have nobody to put them advertisers on the bus, I know they're making money because they got everybody around the world around here on those buses advertising. So we should have a part of that money that in the past, whoever was in control, Mr. Rudd, that's your department, to give us some, and yours too over there, Renee, we supposed to got a cut of that money for all that, what they have. Now we got a new $2 million. You see his money in this organization, whatever it is. So we got to get into this pocket of this guy, whoever you guys approve for this project. I say let's prove it because Facts do an excellent job. They always on time. They keep those buses running, rain or shine at their stop, because I'm a bus rider myself. I used to have a wheelchair till I got this Jeep. Now I got lazy. But I still get on that bus because they out there for us, and that's why that bullet train don't have nothing against the people. If we stick to we the people of the United States, we can get everything we want. We're not the national government. They're just a branch. It's we the people. All these grants and stuff they're getting, make sure that we get our part for the city of Fresno, not those enterprise people up there and those franchise folks. Better come down here to our budget, Bruce, and Ms. Murphy, Ms. Smith. That way we can, Mr. Banu, we will have the money here for us and council person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. Are there any other members of the public that would like to address this item? All right, then we'll come back up to council. Brian, Councilman Brand probably has a question or two. Lee, you're up first.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that this is awarding a contract for $2 million for 5 years, roughly $500,000 a year. Is that correct?
No, sir. It's actually 5 years.
For 5 years.
$400,000.
$400,000. Okay.
Yes.
And then you said in the report that they have a guaranteed annual payments of $400,000 to cover bus advertising. Correct?
That's correct.
So at that level, it's basically just breaking even. Am I correct?
For them, possibly so, yes. But the beauty to the way this agreement is drafted is it's a guarantee. And fortunately, I was in this business for a couple of years. Seldom is there a guarantee. Often it's a percentage deal. But in this case, it's actually a flat fee guarantee, which is actually a tremendous deal for the city of Fresno and for Facts.
Okay, again, I'm going to make sure I got it right. So we're awarding a 5-year, $500,000 per year contract. So we're going to pay them $500,000 per year, correct?
No, it's
$400,000. My math is fuzzy today. So I'm sorry, $400,000 over 5 years. Okay, and they're guaranteeing that they're going to make payments of a minimum $400,000. So in theory, we can't lose $1, correct?
That's absolutely right.
So going back on the previous deal, it said that the city had made, where did I have it, $3 million from bus advertising. So in the past, have we netted a profit on the deal, or has it been broken even? How has it turned out?
Well, I can't really call it a profit, but that was the proceeds from the deal. The $400,000 per year is the proceeds for. Essentially, they're going to receive some portion for what they sell in advertising, but we are guaranteed a $400,000 share for whatever they sell.
Okay, but again, if we're paying them $400,000,
if I could,
if I'm wrong.
The way this deal was structured is that, as Brian pointed out, they are guaranteeing. We're not paying them anything. They're paying us. So we get, at a minimum, guaranteed $400,000 a year. If they don't sell a single bus wrap, we still get $400,000 a year. Okay. Then there is a profit sharing trigger that kicks in after a certain point. So once they hit that point, then we share the net profits. I think it's a 50-50 split or something to that point. So the minimum guarantee is $400,000. There have been years in the past where, because of the market was hot and people were interested in bus advertising, where the department received more than what was the minimum guarantee.
Okay, so that's a minimum. That's net revenue to the Department of Transportation,
which is used to help pay the cost of operation.
And on the $3 million, city manager, was that an average, maybe a couple $100,000 extra a year that we got on that?
It's $400,000.
Okay, you said if we go over, we could actually split.
Oh, it depends on the year. It could be another $100,000. Could be another $50,000.
Okay, and this is advertising on the buses only, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Have we ever considered, like I know we talked about Bus Rapid Transit, about naming rights on bus stations, or particularly BRT stations, as a way of paying for themselves? Is that part of this, or is that separate?
No, at this point, this is just strictly advertising on our vehicles.
Okay. So in the future, we would consider, naming rights on bus stations or shelters?
I have no pride. Yes, we will certainly look at that.
Okay.
For the right price.
I mean, this is a area in our budget that's heavily subsidized. Only about 20% of the cost comes from actual revenue. So the more we can do to raise money from the private sector or through business opportunities, we're stretching our transportation dollars that we certainly need a lot more. So again, thank you for the explanation, both city manager, our new director, and make a motion we approve the item.
Right. So we have a motion and a second. Councilman Zhang.
No, thank you. I appreciate the question. As it was already answered. City manager, thanks for the clarification. How the staff report was a little bit tricky. That's all. Thank you very much.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and the screen is clear. Let's take a vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next item is the City Council section of our agenda, item 3A, and that's ID 14-639, a resolution making and adopting express findings that modify to the California Bureau of Gaming Control regulations mandating fees to all customers, has an adverse impact to the economy of the city of Fresno, and opposing proposed regulations. That's sponsored by Councilman Baines. Oliver?
Yeah, thanks, Council President. And this is actually our effort to make sure that we are supportive of our Club One Casino here in Fresno and some of the movements that are trying to happen at the state level. It's a very odd thing. The state is trying to force card room casinos to charge a fee, and the card rooms don't want to charge that fee. And I'm simplifying it for the purpose of this discussion, but what I'd like to do is call up Kyle Kirkland, the owner, operator of Club One Casino, and would like to give Kyle really an opportunity to chat with us. And Kyle, take as much time as you need. This is part of the staff report, so you're not limited to 3 minutes in the event that you needed more time. But I think it'd be important if my colleagues heard your perspective on this issue.
Okay, thank you. My name's Kyle Kirkland, and I'm the president and general manager, and also one of the owners of Club One Casino. I've been before many of you in the past. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, council members and staff. It's a couple of things. Just before I start, on your prior agenda item, we're a user of Lamar Advertising, and I'm sorry.
Get a little bit closer, Kyle, to the microphone,
Sure,
please.
of course.
Perfect.
So we're a user of Lamar Advertising and bus transit ads, and they've done a great job for us, and they're very visible throughout the city. And I would encourage you, as Councilman Brand pointed out, to look for other opportunities to monetize that, because that's been good for us. So the just speaking on what Councilman Baines raised, There was an effort earlier, or in 2013, by a couple of Southern California card rooms and a couple of tribal casinos to enact legislation which would force card rooms like Club One Casino to actually charge a fee to each customer on every hand played. And we, as other casinos do, typically casinos make money on just the house advantage and the edge. And while we don't take a house edge in games, that is how the revenue is pretty much generated in our facility. Current California Penal Code allows for the collection of fees, but it also allows us to waive those fees. And Club One Casino in 2004 was the first card room to actually waive fees to the general populace. So we made a conscious decision at that time to lower the cost of gaming, to make it basically safer, more recreational, encourage more recreational players, as opposed to basically punishing people with higher fees. And since that time, our revenue tripled, and we've managed to employ a lot more people, and we've managed to generate a lot more money for the city general fund. As it turns out, price matters in pretty much everything, including gaming. Well, there's an effort afoot now, as we did that in 2004 and have operated successfully with that for the past 10 years. There are a couple of card rooms around the state that still charge these fees, and they're in more protected markets. And what they've seen is some of the smaller casinos have seen the success that we've had and have followed suit. And there's an effort to reverse that and actually force us to go back to charging fees on every hand. That failed twice in the legislature, once in 2013, once in 2014. And now there's an effort to make it, to force it upon us as a Bureau of Gambling Control regulation. And that's why I'm here today. There's a hearing on December 12th in Sacramento. Excuse me, I'm on the tail end of a cold here. There's a hearing in Sacramento on the 12th, and we expect to have a number of card rooms up there and card room employees because of the very disastrous impact it would have on our industry. I'm president of the California Gaming Association, and I represent a lot of card rooms in the state. And while I'm here today as Club One Casino, I will tell you what's going to happen to us is going to happen in other communities. And what's going to happen to Club One Casino if this goes into effect is our traffic's going to drop by about 80%. We're going to lose about 80%. It affects 80% of our games. I expect 80% of our revenue to come off at a minimum. We have 350 people that work in our building. The majority of them have living wage jobs, meaning they make well above the prevailing wage in the county of Fresno. They support families. They make a car payment, a student loan payment, and what have you. 300 of the 350 people that work in our building, I'm estimating that 300 of those jobs are at serious risk. Upwards of $1 million of the payment that we make to the state's general fund would be at risk with that. As well, we're a pretty good customer for a lot of folks, a lot of businesses throughout Fresno, including Lamar Advertising or food and beverage vendors or different service providers, and that's at risk as well. As many of you know, we are a benefactor of a lot of nonprofits, and that support would have to go away with this. So what I've asked I approached Councilman Baines to put forth a resolution for us, or propose a resolution that would actually express the city's support for what we're going through with this. I believe, with the support that we have across the state, that we will be able to address this, but I would appreciate the city of Fresno's support. And just so we have a sense of some of the people that are supporting us, I have a letter in support of Club One Casino from former Mayor Willie Brown, Mayor of San Francisco. I believe I have the support of Representative Jim Costa. We have the support of, there's 88 card rooms around the state. I have letters from 35 of the owners. I have letters from the mayor of Citrus Heights, mayor of Colma. We believe we're getting support from the city of Normandy. There is a number of chambers of commerce around the state that are in support of this. If you look behind me, we have a small subset of the people that work for us. I have over 300 letters, signed letters from members or from people that work for us at Club One Casino, representing the jobs that they're going to lose. And again, that represents $9 million of wages in the city of Fresno. So if you put that in perspective, $9 million worth of wages, taxes, benefits that are paid just on those employees alone. And so a number of the folks that work for us, because it's such a good job, they are the primary provider in their home. So not only are the 300 people affected, but there's some multiplier effect beyond that. So I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to voice what we're going through here. I believe that we're in a position to address it, and I will be at the hearings and speaking against that. But if we could get the city to provide us with some sort of support here in the form of resolution, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, thanks, Kyle. I'm going to now turn it back over to you, Council President, and I guess if you want to take it out to the public, but that will conclude the staff report. And then when we come back up here, I'll make a couple more remarks.
I can certainly answer any questions, too.
Thank you, Kyle. We're going to go out to the public now,
Okay.
and then council will probably call you back up and ask a few more questions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Barbara, you turned in a card. And then after Barbara's done, if any member of the public would like to address this item, they can come up to the microphone. You didn't actually need a card, but it always helps. But go ahead,
How
Barbara.
come he don't need one and I need one? Don't you start it, Mr. Tea Bagger, Tea Party? Why in the hell did this man wait so late to bring this up here before the council, the last minute? These people going to be out of jobs, no homes, no food. Kids going to be begging. They going to be hungry, no clothes. Everybody going to be looking stupid. He's the administration. They should have been up here bringing this project up here so the council can go through it or see what it has to be done. But I see he's done his homework, talked to people up here. They should bring it to the public. Well, people are supposed to know something going on around this place. The only way we know is somebody come up here and run their mouth like I do, I'm going to tell it. Now, what it is, I was here when Bob Long was here, when he first went to jail up there. And I was here when his wife took over and tried to have the people in there with him, but she couldn't do it. I've been here a long time with this Club One over here. And they've been there, and the people, those big old charter buses coming here, they go to Yosemite, they take all them people up there. It's the money hub this place is over here to help people. Whatever we can do to help these people to stay floating, let's do it. We got too many people involved in this process not to do it. Because but the people have to have a word in some process. It should have been in everybody's meetings at your districts. We should have talked about this, not in closed session. You come up with a decision. Every time you go in closed session, the public don't know that's a Brown Act violation. You guys are going against the law. So what it is, there's people here, the kids, the people are going to lose jobs, and they're going to wait till the day to come and going to ask for help. I'm still talking about that administration. I can see if it was that Indian reservation up in there, with the BIA up there, they supposed to be up and they ain't doing nothing. Those are my folks. That's another conversation. But this one here, they got a lot of traffic from everywhere coming down here, because I'll be at the bus stop over there walking down here to City Hall, and I see a lot of traffic. The people is real nice, because I go in there and eat those Philly cheese dip, whatever they got it. Go in there. People come all times of night. It's a place on downtown revitalization downtown, so we got a place for people to go because it stays open 24 hours. Cabs outside, everything else too. So you got to take care of home first. I see the general fund is in this process, but I'm also glad and hope that you guys include these people that's doing all this hard work to keep it floating all these many years. The time been put in just to have this place downtown, and let's prove it. But I also want to put for the administration. You do your job. You're making all the money up there, administration. Maybe we should cut your salaries, because they're supposed to be up here to bring it to the public and the council so they can make their sound decision. Thank you very much.
Barbara, any other members of the public like to address this item? All right, then we'll come back up to council. Councilman Baines, did you want to take back over? I also have a comment.
Okay, yeah, I'll be brief. Okay. I think Kyle really summarized the thoughts that we needed to have. What I'd like to do is there was a letter that came in a little late. I mean, literally by just a few moments, from former Mayor Willie Brown, San Francisco. It's addressed. It's for this particular resolution, but it's obviously addressed to the Attorney General. I'd like to have that included as part of the staff report. So I'll be making a motion to approve the recommended resolution along with the letter from Oakland Mayor Willie Brown.
A motion and a second. The screen's clear. I would just like to say, actually, Bruce, let me clarify something. I think that Club One is one of our outstanding businesses in Fresno, and we have a lot of them. But from all the work that you folks do at Club One, it generates a lot of the tax dollars that allow this city to operate and do all the things we need to do, especially the things attached to our general fund and take care of our citizens. So, Bruce, how much annually does Club One contribute to our?
It's around, if you look just at the direct, it's about $900,000. But as Mr. Kirkland pointed out, there's also the ancillary or the trickle through the economy that also generates additional revenue from vendors that they do business with and things like that.
So all the other vendors, yeah, come on up, Kyle. So talk to us about that a little bit.
Sure. Just to put some numbers to it, and I don't know, I probably should have mentioned it's we're coming up next year will be our 20th year of continuous operation. So we've been in operation since November 17th of 1995. So to put that in a little bit of perspective, that's over 7,000 days in a row, 24 hours a day. As Mr. Rudd pointed out, it's actually a little over $900,000. I think I sign every one of those checks every month, so seems to me it's somewhat almost closer to $1 million a year, and that goes into the city's general fund. That does not include. It actually doesn't include taxes that we pay to the state of California to operate. It doesn't pay any of the other business taxes that we pay to the city, any of our property taxes. It doesn't include any of the payroll taxes or any other items that were out there. And it doesn't include our corporate income taxes or my own. So that is just what the general fund money is paid in. And as Councilman Baines pointed out, we had a letter that came in a little bit later. If it would help you for your staff report, I can also include a letter that I've sent to the Bureau of Gambling Control. We are allowed to provide our comments on the regulations, and I've done that on behalf of Club One Casino. I also I'm going to be giving them copies of the other letters from our staff people. I won't burden you with that, but I have economic impact reports that we've done showing a very detailed impact. I tossed some numbers around here. I actually went through that in a fair bit of detail, and I could provide that to you as well if you'd like that for backup.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kyle. And so just to close my comments, and then the screen's clear and we can take a vote, but we have a business that's been in Fresno for 20 years, generating over $1 million a year into our general fund so that our citizens know that's what helps pay for law enforcement, our fire, our streets, our street lights, all that type of those good things. So I'll be very supportive of this resolution to make you as successful as you can be. All right, we have a clear screen. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Congratulations, Kyle. Thank you, Councilman Baines. All right, then. Now we are running out of items that we can do until we have some timed items at 10 o'clock. So I'm going to take this opportunity to go into closed session. We have a couple of things in closed session that we can deal with in that time frame. So would our city attorney, if you could announce closed session?
Yes, we have closed session on labor negotiations concerning the listed bargaining units as well as the unrepresented employees too. There's an opportunity for the public to speak on these before we go in.
All right, thank you. Well, we can't just yet, Barbara. I want to recognize, is this one of our school classes, and where are you guys from? Valley Crescent in Clovis. Is that right? And what class is this? What grade? Oh, 5th through 8th grade. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming. We totally appreciate it. We're probably boring you, but we're glad to have you. We have to go and take a 30-minute break right now, or 20 minutes. So if you want to stick around, we'll be back here in about 20 minutes, but we don't blame you if you want to leave. So, but thanks for coming today.
Hey, Steve, I just wanted to say, I think, Phil, how many years? This is your third year? This is their third year coming to our council meetings. They do this day every year, Government Day, and they bring several of their students here to visit with us. So this is that time of year again for them.
All right,
yeah.
fantastic.
So they're committed to us right here.
I like it. Yeah, thank you. Did you have to mention out of?
There's nothing to
session?
report from closed
Okay.
session.
All right, then. We're going to get started with a 10 a.m. timed item. The first, no. Oh, no. Okay, we're going with the 10 a.m. timed item number 1. That's coming actually from my council office, and I'll talk about that in a second, but is a workshop, a presentation by Fresno Unified School District Superintendent Michael Hansen. And we're glad to have Michael today. Come on up, Michael. We appreciate you being here. We know you've got a lot of things to do today. But I wanted to mention why I wanted to sponsor this about, Mike, I don't remember when it was, about 4 weeks ago, you had a big meeting over here at the convention, at the hotel room,
Yes.
at the hotel, and you talked about some of the great achievements that have happened at Fresno Unified. You mentioned some of the challenges, and it really inspired me, and I thought of having all the superintendents that impact the city of Fresno come talk about their districts a little bit, and so that council members can hear from you, the superintendents, and you as Fresno Unified, you know, some of the great things that are happening, but then also some of the challenges. We make a lot of decisions, and we hear a lot about the need for, qualified workers in our community, and that all begins at your level. So you're the one that starts the ball rolling for making Fresno a better place for employees, for businesses, and for all of the growth that we intend to have. So I just wanted to invite you today to give us a brief overview of Fresno Unified.
And thank you so much, President Brandow and members of the council. It's great to be here today. I thank you for the opportunity. I will. It dawned on me after the request that what I would do is start with a brief kind of historical context over the last 9 years or so of Fresno Unified to kind of bring us up to local time, so to speak. So as I say good morning, I want to say that Fresno Unified's mission is to prepare career-ready graduates and further support the city of Fresno and all the youth that we have in our city. And when I became superintendent in the year 2005, there were a number of things that were clear and distinct that need to be addressed. We'd had 3 superintendents in the last 5 years. One of our members in the community here, former board member Medina, can remember this well. Academically, among the lowest performing in the state. Facilities were challenged, to say the least, and on the brink of state takeover and bankruptcy. I can stand here today very proudly to tell you we've made great progress in all areas, although while I'm as incredibly proud about progress we've made, I'm equally concerned about the great distance we still have to travel. So let me just go through a few of these things that are, I think, of import for council members. In the 04-05 year, at the 3rd grade level, we had less than 1 in 5 of our students proficient or reading at grade level. It was about 18%. The last time we gave that state test in the year 2013, that had nearly doubled to 34%. In mathematics, it was more dramatic. We were less than 1 in 3. About 31% of our students were at grade level, and that has almost doubled to 58%. So we made some great progress there. In 8th grade is another benchmark grade for us as kids head into high school. It was even more dismal. Students, we only had 16%, way fewer than 1 in 5, proficient in reading and language arts, and now that is up over 42%. And in mathematics, it was at 15%, and that's Algebra 1 in 8th grade, and now it is 50%. So we've made some significant progress in the academic arena, all of which needs to continue to improve, and we're on that trajectory. A couple of other things that we get measured on that our board has in board policy as a measurement system that I'm held to and our whole system is held to. I should call out because it has big impacts for our community. In the year 2008, we graduated just over 3,600 students in that graduating class. In last year, it was over 4,200. So another 600 kids were graduating per year, and that's part of our graduation task force. Councilman Baines was a member of that one. Admissions to the University of California went up from 220 to over 550 in that same time period, about 2009 to 2014. The same with our local university here. We were under 1,000 at 999 people applied to CSU Fresno. That is almost 2,000 now a year are applying with our partnership with CSUF, with Dr. Welty and now Dr. Castro. 84% of our graduates last year of those 4,200 students had plans for and applied to at least a community college to further their education, and that was an all-time high for us. And here is another one that's a bit, it's education speak, but there's a series of coursework approved by the gold standard University of California in the state that students take what is called the A to G courses. You take those courses and pass them, you become eligible for the CSU and the UC system. In the year 2008, we had 25% of our students completing the A to G sequence that would make them eligible. That has almost doubled now to just 48% in a short period of 4 years. So we've made, beyond these areas, we've made some significant progress that I think are pretty evident to folks as they drive around town. In the year 2010, we had, to call it an inadequate food packaging plant or center would be an overstatement. It would be very, well, I'll just leave it there. It was an old Save Mart at the corner of Clinton and Fruit, and we were just putting frozen food under plastic and rolling it out the door. We now have a state-of-the-art central nutrition center that serves and packages and prepares 93,000 meals a day, including a lot of local produce and products from the Central Valley. We also now, we're the first big district in the state of California to move from pilot status. We now offer free breakfast and free lunch regardless of a student's income level for every kid in our district. We've taken advantage of a provision from the United States Department of Agriculture to make that happen. Through the support of our Fresno voters, in the time I've been superintendent, into my 10th year now, we have built 6 distinct schools. You'll recognize some of these names: Mario G. Olmos Elementary, Indira Yakomi Elementary, Molly S. Bakeman Elementary, Deborah Williams Elementary, Vang Pao Elementary, and just parenthetically, before council came out, we had some of our 3rd graders from Vang Pao in the building taking a tour of City Hall. Part of what we do to get them out in the community and understand how the world works. And then most recently, and with great fanfare in West Fresno, we opened, after 30-plus years, Rutherford B. Gaston Senior Middle School to give West Fresno its neighborhood middle school. In addition to those new schools, we've been doing facilities upgrades across the district due to Measure K and Measure Q. Measure Q was approved with almost 76% of our voters in 2010. And we have removed over 200 portable classrooms from our campuses and replaced them with permanent, state-of-the-art teaching and learning facilities. We have upgraded athletic facilities at Bullard High School, Fresno High, Hoover High, and Edison by adding pools, all-weather tracks, updated lighting, and so on. More to come at other parts of our city. These building improvements have continued to create better facilities in our neighborhoods. We think improve neighborhoods, improve property values, and learning environments all at the same time while we keep the tax rate for our folks the exact same. We have not asked for another penny from folks. We've just extended the tax rate, which has been part of our bond strategy. And I thank deeply our Deputy Superintendent and CFO, Ruthie Quinto, for helping to lead the way, but also her work in the financial area has been unparalleled. We've gone from verge of state takeover back to a positive position in 06-07 and have been there ever since. Moody's has affirmed our credit rating continually as AA3 since 2010, and our positive and significant reserves have helped weather very significant and turbulent times. With the stability, not only of our board but our staff, we've been able to make some very significant investments, not just in facilities, but in our youth and programs that will support them. We, like the city, went through a very series of difficult years. But throughout, we're continuing to reinvest and try to figure out how to redirect resources. With the passage of Proposition 30, we immediately invested $7.4 million into the expansion of preschool. One of the reasons we weren't moving our reading proficiency faster and further were that we weren't getting our kids to a formal schooling setting early enough. Too many kids were just not in school until they would show up in kindergarten. With huge word gaps and underprepared. So almost $7.5 million into the expansion of preschool. That nearly doubles our preschool enrollment in the city from about 42%. We're trying to get to 80. We're right at 76% now, on the way to 80. They put another $2.5 million into transitional kinder, which opens up opportunities for our youth prior to kindergarten. That happens now at every elementary school in our district. That was part of another task force that we ran called the Early Learning Task Force, but it dovetailed with the Graduation Task Force. All of our task forces have basically said the same thing: do more of the right things early, and when you can get the opportunity to invest resources, make programs more meaningful for our youth. So I'm going to outline just a few more things. I should also say, with our deep investment in our board's leadership in early learning, the Packard Foundation, who is a nationwide leader in early learning support, has now committed to a new 10-year strategy for investing in 0 to 5 and how we help kids and families in that age bracket, they have chosen only 3 places to focus in the country, and they are in the Santa Clara County Office of Education, in Oakland, and Fresno Unified. So we're very pleased to have that partner coming forward for the next 10 years with us. You've also, many of you have heard me say this, so I want to put it on the record with our City Council. The way to end our concentrated poverty, from my viewpoint and from our Board of Education's, we end concentrated poverty with concentrated education. That's how we fight back. And the way we get concentrated education is getting more time with effective teachers everywhere and any way that we possibly can. That's what more preschool is about, for example. So through the negotiation process that we just completed with Fresno Teachers Association last spring, one of the things that we did is we had a very successful school improvement model with a federal grant at 3 schools, and basically the model said add 30 minutes more of instruction every day for the kids and add 2 more weeks of professional development for the staff in the summer, pay the teachers 10% more. With the additional resources that have come from the state, we built it into our contract that we will be implementing that model. At 10 schools this year that we're in, by March we will announce the next 20 for the next year, and then there will be another 10 after that. So that will be 2/3 of Fresno Unified's elementary schools will have 30 minutes more a day. That equates to 18 days of more schooling per year for the kids who go to those schools. So that's the way we get concentrated education in play. I will also say that middle school has been an area of concern for us, and our board has invested $4.4 million to redesign our middle schools in partnership with the Gates Foundation and how we do professional learning. By way of doing that, we have made sure that we have guaranteed all of our students things they did not have before, which is at least 1 elective in journalism, music, art, and a language other than English. These are all college preparatory courses that did not exist before and had them behind when they entered high school. We've remediated that. Very importantly as well, we had about $6 million total we were spending in career technical education, or voc ed, or however people want to refer to it. Our board in the last budget year almost doubled that investment with another $5 million, and that is expanding pathways and opportunities throughout our district. And in addition, I should also say, right behind Radcliffe Stadium, a new school is being built that once was a continuation school. Basically, kids would get in trouble, way credit deficient, and they'd find themselves there. And we've redesigned alternative education, and this new school will be a pathway that will help, we think, kids create their own businesses. And we have a partnership with the Lyle Center for Entrepreneurship at Fresno State that is doing some phenomenal work for us in elementary school, and they will be a partner with us at this new school as well. Just a couple more things. I mentioned the Gaston Middle School earlier, and as I bring this in for a close, I am very, very proud as the superintendent to represent the Board of Education to say that we did something there, I think, to help change a community by working together with Housing Authority, the City of Fresno, Flood Control, and others. The Gaston Middle School proper, the phenomenal academic wing, 2-story gorgeous building that now serves over 800 students in that community instead of being bused across the town, that building now physically sits on what once was the U. So that place for gang violence and drugs and so forth is no longer there, and that's because an institution took the initiative with partners to build something for our community, and we're very proud of that. I would also just say, I know my time is short here, I will just say we look forward to continuing to partner with all of you, the City of Fresno, the Mayor's Office, City Manager, Chief of Police, and all where we touch in very important ways with our nearly 10,000 employees. And I will not be able to stay for the rest of this morning's proceedings, but I wanted to say that we are committed in Fresno Unified to making this a better place to live, work, have our kids be supported. And we think a great way to do that is for us to say to you, we are in full support in Fresno Unified of the city's 2035 general plan. That is generally the footprint of Fresno Unified. And that concentrated work in those communities is exactly the kind of concentrated work that we're doing in the district, and we look forward to partnership in helping to implement that. Educating our city's youth and supporting their families around health, housing, and education is the most important thing that we can do in partnership with you. And I welcome the opportunity to be here for just a few minutes today and give you a brief update.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mike. This is a workshop, so I wanted to let people know that workshops are really for just council, and we don't take public comment. We're going to have another one right after Mike is done. But council members can still ask a few questions or make a few comments. Councilman Baines, you're up first.
Thanks, Council President. And I don't know if I even have any questions, Mr. Superintendent, but I wanted to certainly start by thanking the Council President for the series of presentations that you have with our area superintendents. I think it's fantastic. I don't think we've done this since I've been on the council, so I appreciate your vision in that, and certainly welcome that to the council. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent, for making some time to come spend with us today. And listen, what I really want to say is I want to join you in sharing some of the successes you've outlined that have happened in Fresno Unified over the last 9 years, and also join in with you with the challenges that still exist.
Yes.
Because as you know, when I sat on the graduation task force, and you probably remember my comments at the close, it was made clear to me that education is not just a problem of the school district. Education is the problem of our community.
Correct.
And if we in this community are not joining with our academic institutions to come alongside you all and jump in the fire with you, it's not going to work. So I stand here today and welcoming this conversation. Very glad that our council president has opened this dialogue, and I'm going to assure you that there are things that are coming down the pipe, at least from the city of Fresno, to formalize our relationships with you all and join in the effort of educating our community, because it cannot be done simply by the school district alone. We have to be a part of the entire process. And I wanted, and just two more quick things. I wanted to just celebrate Gaston with you. I think 33 years of not having a middle school in that area, the damage that it really did to generations of students is remarkable and probably can't even be quantified. Right. And the fact that we stopped that practice and are bringing those students home to their home environment is fantastic. I know that it is one of the finest middle schools in the state right now, and I'm happy about that. I know that there are some challenges that exist there, and as you know, always I'm a friend in that effort. And I wanted to commend you on you gave a statistic, and I don't remember what you called it, but where there are going to be 30 more minutes of instruction per day,
extended day, correct?
Right, and that comes out to 18 days a year.
Yes.
And I took it one step further and said if you are looking at a K through 12 student, that's 234 days of instruction in the lifetime of that student that's available to them. And I think that's remarkable. That's almost a full, well, I don't know how many school days you have in the year, but that's more than, that's over a full school year of additional education.
I'll just be very explicit on that, where in those 40 schools, they will be the 40 schools with the highest concentration of students living in poverty, English learners, foster and homeless youth in our city. And by the time we are done, we will be, 18 days is almost a full month of school.
Yep.
So when you put this together and a kid starts in kinder, by the time they're through 6th grade, and if they join us as part of the added year of preschool, it is not unrealistic to think we are adding a year and a half or more of classroom instruction time to a youth education before they even step foot on the middle schools that we've been redesigning.
Yeah.
So we look forward to that.
No, and I think it's tremendous. It was made clear to me in the graduation task force that the more kids are in school, the smarter they become. I mean, it's not rocket science there. The more hours you can get them in instruction, we know the benefits are monumental. So thank you, Mr. Superintendent, for all your work. Consider our Fresno City Council and the entire city of Fresno a friend, and whatever we can do to help in the effort of educating our students, we'll be there. Thank you.
I do, and I thank you.
All right. Is that it, Councilman Baines? Councilman Quintero.
Welcome, Superintendent.
Thank you.
I have a few questions, and thank you for the good presentation. Some of the questions I have, and specifically for the southeast part of the city, for the council district there, would that be your highest concentration of your student population before the new general plan's approved currently?
So we would have to talk specific. I don't want to speak out of turn, so I'd have to have barriers and boundaries that I don't have in my head that
Okay.
are yours, that are not mine,
Sure.
my trustee areas. But that was the area of our fastest growth. I don't know that I would say it's our highest concentration. I will tell you, in that part of town, we have our highest concentration of homeless youth, for example. We have some significant challenges and struggles of our youth in that part of the city, as we do in many others. But we have a lot of students to serve in that part of town, yes.
Okay. And would that homeless youth population that you're talking about, would that be from K through 12?
Yes.
Okay. And then I guess you have, do you have somebody from your staff have ongoing meetings with our staff regarding the general plan?
Yes, we have
you
had.
do? Okay. And with the, we've got 3 school districts out there in Southeast, and I believe Sanger's going to show some significant growth out there pretty soon. You have a campus that where you move the students to Vang Pao.
Yes.
What are you going to do with that campus on Church?
So what we
plans?
refer to as Southeast Elementary,
Yes.
what we did is we actually took our Phoenix Academy, which was our K-6 program for expelled youth a few years ago. And what we did simply is we made it, instead of saying we're going to have a place to house our youth who get expelled and get into serious discipline problems in the world of K-6, I know that sounds odd to hear that come out of my mouth, but we have some students who have some significant they make bad decisions, but the bad decisions are based on some very significant either psychological or needs or trauma they've suffered. And what we finally got more smart about, I think, is just recognizing we have to be not a place to house some young students who are expelled, but we have to have a therapeutic component to the type of schooling we're doing with those kids. So we reformed that expelled youth school called Phoenix, named it that on purpose. For K-6, we moved it to a Dakota campus and expanded it to grades 7, 8. And there was such a need and such a desire from site principals, families, and others. We had youth who did not want to go back to homeschool because this was such a place that was nurturing and safe for them that we actually expanded it to a 7-12 campus. And we moved Phoenix Secondary, grades 7-12, to that Southeast campus. So if you were to go there now, the majority of that campus is being used in that way, therapeutically and educationally, to help our students who have been expelled to grade 7-12.
7-12?
Yes.
Okay. And do they take part in any way with that? Fresno Pacific has a reconciliation program. Is that helpful or not?
So, yes. The restorative practices work is, they were actually doing that work before we called it restorative practices and started to build it into parts of our city. Right now, 2 years ago, we went in the McLean region first and started a pilot there across a number of schools. We have gone, the entire region wide now is a restorative practice region in the McLean region now. The second region we moved to was the Edison region in Southwest, simply because we wanted to get ahead of opening Gaston's Middle School and bringing all of these middle school youth back together. I think many people made a false assumption that if you just put these kids back together, they're a community. They're not a community. They weren't a natural community because they'd been bussed all over the city, the families, for decades. So we spent a lot of time with our staff helping them understand the restorative practices process and how to help solve problems and de-escalate, because we would have some issues on the front end, and our staff has done a phenomenal job. And I would also say to Brian Angus at EOC and the Street Saints that are working inside our school there, they have been a phenomenally important component part of helping to keep things safe and orderly at Gaston.
The students that are homeless, Superintendent,
yes,
do they tend to, maybe because of them being homeless, do they tend to move from one school to another, or
yes,
try to stay at the same campus?
Yes, and we've implemented both through state law and through local practices, making sure that in many instances, if a student moves out of necessity, that we don't necessarily, like we used to just almost callously say, well, if they've moved, they got to move schools. It just doesn't make sense for a student who is homeless and is seeking connection and a home away from home, if you will. So in many instances, that student will stay connected to the home school that they're at, even though they have moved and changed addresses. For the record, for our council, we're operating at about 2,400 homeless youth right now in our district.
Wow.
So it is not an insignificant problem. I would also assure you that even though the governor did not call out homeless youth as a specific funding category in the local control funding formula, he funded additionally for our poor youth, our English learners, and our foster youth. We count homeless as part of that very intensive population that needs help, and we track them very deliberately. And if on any one of our metrics, from attendance in kindergarten, reading levels in third grade, suspension rates in fourth grade, whatever the metric we're looking at, if our homeless youth or our foster youth or any one of our subpopulations shows up in the data disproportionate, meaning they are being affected more frequently than you would think they would based on their population in the percentage of student population, it is a red flag that jumps off the computer screen, and we are bound to do something about that. So we're very excited about that kind of work, that level of transparency, and being able to dig in and get that kind of data and then turn that into staff work immediately to serve youth.
Okay. Finally, I just want to thank you and the board for really restoring more community pride on that Roosevelt campus. It's a beautiful looking campus. It doesn't look like an incarceration facility.
Yes.
It with all the, and Councilmember Brand being a graduate from there, I'm sure will agree with me. But it looks beautiful. It's really a great job.
Thank you. I will just say on that, we had every now and then we have folks jump our fence to get in the pool or something on the weekend, and I was out on Roosevelt's campus after all the work had been done, and the custodian said to me, "Geez, they cut a hole in the fence, Mike, and it was big enough to get a barbecue in. Like, I don't understand, right?" And I looked around and I said, "Makes all the sense in the world to me. Like, it was a long weekend. There's a pool. Look at the quad. Look at the green space. They put up a volleyball net. We just made a city park." Right? I mean, they came and enjoyed the weekend. And
I heard about that.
While it's not what we're condoning and it's not what we did it for, it was an indication that there has been a real tone change on the campuses and many of our campuses where that work's been done.
I think Councilmember Capriolo also spent a little bit of time there. So
you mean cutting the
Thank you.
hole in the
Makes it
fence?
sound like you didn't finish.
You'll have to ask him about that.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilman Zhang.
Superintendent, welcome.
Thank you.
Probably the only way we'll get him here anyway. Thanks for bringing him in. No, I just want to echo my colleagues' support. I know the tough work that you and the trustees have had to gone through, but I just want to reiterate I think the movement in terms of concentrating on 0 to 5. We all know that the more effort that we put in 0 to 5, the money and investment that we put there, the better we become. As kids, whether they go to kindergarten or up, their grade level attainment is crucial at that age. So, I'm starting to see the movement towards that and to really put the money where it needs to be, because we know that in the long run, this is a preventative type of educational outreach that affects all of us into the future, and they've already used the data about the jails and all those things. Yes. So the 0 to 5 is a critical investment, and I know we talk about K to 12 a lot, but I think 0 to 5 continues to be the critical piece for our students. That when we're talking about dropout rates, we're talking about education, we're talking about all the things that matter to us, but sometimes we don't get the 0 to 5 type of attention and investment that it does deserve, and to see the school and leadership begin to look at 0 to 5, how critical it is for us in terms of our next generation. So whatever we expect our students and our children to be, that is the critical investment. So I hope that you continue to do that, continue to be a champion in that particular piece, because it does affect us. It does matter to us from 0 to 5 and what it means to us in the future. So I just want to make sure that you'll have my support on those type of efforts, and I'll continue to be involved in the community in terms of that area.
Thank you, Councilman. And if I just may, on that point, I will be in front of the Packard Foundation Board next week on this very issue of our early learning partnership and the grant we have before them. And to Councilman Bain's point about education being a community issue, I will just say for the City Council to consider, this is going to be a very complicated, difficult thing to do as we move into this 0 to 5 space, because it is not a formal established. We're going to be dealing with a lot of informal childcare We're going to be dealing with a lot of families and parents that we have not normally engaged, even though we have a very robust parent university that's trained up over 15,000 parents. It will be very, very hard work, and we're going to have to think as a city how we become creative about doing that. I don't think a school district's going to be able to do it by ourselves.
Councilman Brand.
I do appreciate what you've done for Roosevelt. It survived 3 years of Lee Brand many years ago. It's more to that than I'm really going on. And thank you, Council President, for asking you to come. And I appreciate your efforts over the last, 10 plus years. And I know what you inherited. I know that no good deed goes unpunished sometimes. But the strategic relationship between the city and the school is really important. I mean, there's a direct nexus between what you guys do, your graduation rate, that have a direct impact on what we do, on our employment force, our social economic problems, and really our general fund in terms of, if people graduate, and I've talked to Member Baines before about the correlation between graduation and not being incarcerated or being in illegal activities, getting a job, and it just all works together, for us, and to work forward. Really, I think Mayor Autry really started this about 12, 14 years ago, about trying to unsuccessfully, do a school board deal, but his heart was in the right place, clearly understanding. I know our current mayor understands the same significance of a close working relationship, and aligning with the private sector on jobs. And how are you guys doing as far as trying to, provide some vocational training, because everybody's not going to go on and be go to UC California?
So, as I mentioned, our board in the last budget cycle almost doubled our career voc ed line item budget by another $5 million. We now have established pathways at every one of our high schools. We have adopted linked learning is the term of art. The Irvine Foundation has built this model over about a decade, and linked learning does work very well. Porterville is probably the best place anywhere near Fresno that does it on a scale that's, they're obviously not as big as we are, but they do it exceptionally well. In fact, a group of 15 to 20 of us, including board members, will be going to Porterville tomorrow for a visit to their programs. So aligning the pathways matter a great deal. I think we're going to continue to see in the upcoming couple of years partnerships more with Fresno State to different centers they have on campus, and aligning our students and giving them a clear pathway and a vision to what it means to be an entrepreneur, for example, open your own business, also what it means to be an engineer, what it means to be a chemist, and so on and so forth. And I also think there are going to be a lot more job opportunities that we're just flat focused on. I'd had 2 conversations yesterday with business leaders in town about exactly this topic of how we get our youth in the high schools into business opportunities. But I will also just say, back to our graduation task force and our CTE career readiness task force that we did, we also said in that one we have to do more for kids early. So in the 3rd grade, all of our almost 6,000 3rd graders see business come into the classroom to tell them what it's about. All of our 4th graders go out into the community to different businesses. By the time we get to 5th and 6th grade, 5th grade, all of our students are taking a lesson once a week on basically entrepreneurship through the Lyles Center for Entrepreneurship in a partnership we have with them. All of our students are on the City College campus, and they're all at a 4-year university before they get through middle school. Those were all things we didn't do before, just as exposure, so that we then can start to direct them into pathways that they find to be of interest to them. But we have a lot of work yet to do to align right to the job market.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I realize it's going to take a lot of other agencies, including the private sector, to achieve that success. And Member Baines and myself will be working on some items that will hopefully strengthen the relationship and improve the relationship with Fresno Unified. And
look forward to it.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Councilman Capriolio.
Thank you. Just for the record, when Councilmember Brand and I were at Roosevelt High School, we were Valley champions in athletics and academics, as I recall. Do you agree with that, Lee? Well, I'm not. I gave you an opportunity, my friend. And we didn't have the privilege of a private education, perhaps like Councilmember Quintero had at Memorial, I believe. But Be
I
that
paid
as
my
it
own
may.
way.
Be that as it may, I want to thank you for your presentation and for the vast improvements at Hoover High School. And it really is transforming that campus. And I think the students are getting vast benefits from the whole process. I also want to let you know there are 15 elementary schools. You probably know that in District 4, as well as 2 high schools. So keep us in the forefront, if you will, of these programs and process. And I would encourage you to communicate more with Dr. Castro and Fresno State University, which I graduated from too as well, and with honors. But sorry, Lee. But I think with their program and their future educators that are coming through their system could use the practical experience in those 15 elementary schools in District 4, proximity and the need that's there. So I'd encourage you to continue that relationship and enhance our entire city as well as my district. So thanks for being here today.
Absolutely, we will. And for the record, I got a text from Dr. Castro this morning at 3 a.m. He was on East Coast time, though, but it woke me up. But he's with the president today on that college opportunity presentation that the president is talking about. And our president, our local president, is knee-deep in exactly where he needs to be to make opportunities for our youth available in higher ed, and we stand in full partnership with him.
As he says, he's absolutely being bold. That's his words, and he's living proof of what he says he does. So he is very bold, and as you are, and we sincerely appreciate that from the citizens of Fresno.
Thank you.
Superintendent Hanson, like normally happens as council president, all of my colleagues have made most of the important comments and observations, but again, it's just great for you to come out and express all the great things that are happening at Fresno Unified. This one sentence you said, the way to fight concentrated poverty is with concentrated education, and that's more time with effective teachers. That's outstanding, and I believe that you're doing that, and I appreciate all of the updates from Fresno Unified. I shared Councilman Brand's concerns and excitement about vocational ed opportunities for some of our students. We get to hear from economic development both within the city and EDC, and it sounds to me like in the years right in front of us, there's going to be a great demand for ready-to-work students or professionals in our community. So you're creating that workforce for us, and then in turn that workforce creates the taxes that makes our city function and operate and provide all the things that our citizen needs. So we really applaud everything that you're doing at Fresno Unified. We're glad that you came out today, and maybe we can, in an ongoing annual basis, have you come update Fresno City Council.
I would love to do that. And I would just say in closing, I have been very blessed to have a Board of Education that, even though we've had changes on the board over the time I've been here, they've been just uniformly almost focused on youth, on what we do for long-term investments, how we dig out of holes and how we make things better for the city, and a partnership with the City Council. And certainly we've had strong partnership with mayors in the past, Mayor Autry and certainly with Mayor Swearingen. It makes a big difference for us to know that you're there, and we thank you deeply for that support.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike. Have a great day, and we appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Now we are going to immediately go into another workshop. Again, it's not a great opportunity for public comment, but it is a chance for the public and council to hear. And this workshop, actually, I'm going to move to the 1015 item. That is ID 14632. It's a workshop on the City of Fresno's general plan update. That's from our Development and Resource Management Department.
All right, good morning, Council President, members of the City Council. I am very pleased to be here along with the leadership of our Development and Resource Management Department, Jennifer Clerk, and also a part of our presentation this morning is Assistant City Manager Renee Smith. And we're delighted to be at this point in the development of the general plan update. It has been a long, productive difficult and elaborate process to get to this point. Before I jump into the presentation this morning, I want to start by saying thank you to some really key people who have been literally living, eating, breathing, sleeping this general plan. And I want to go back to our former Assistant Director of Development, Keith Bergthold, and thank him for his work in initiating all of the public outreach. I think it's fair to say that we reached historic levels of public outreach in putting together this particular general plan update, and he continues to be involved, and really want to just take a moment to thank him. And then stepping in last year, I don't think she knew what she was getting into, and thankfully she didn't, because she probably would not have taken the job. But we were so very pleased to have Jennifer Clerk join our team here at the City of Fresno. She has done an incredible job of taking much of the work that has been done, refining it, and really putting together, I think, what is a very strong and compelling general plan update, and you'll be wading into the details of that over the coming weeks. So I'm going to say thank you to Jennifer. She is backed up by an extraordinary team, and I'll let her name the folks as we go along over the next couple of weeks. But to say that these individuals have been doing overtime would be an understatement. Whether it's Thanksgiving weekend, all of the weekends leading up to this point, and we really recognize and acknowledge their work. So our hope this morning is to kick off the formal adoption process with a substantive workshop that really prepares you to focus in on the key issues of the general plan update. We want to equip you to focus on the most strategic elements of this plan. As you know, there's no shortage of words that fill pages when it comes to the general plan. There's no shortage of things that you've been asked to read. And if you're like me and really want to take a strategic view of something before you get all the way into the details and ultimately debate and deliberate and vote on this plan, it's very helpful to take a few steps back and really contemplate what it is that's being proposed, what it's intended to accomplish, and just what all is included in the general plan update. So that's the information that we intend to provide to you today. We'll spend a little bit of time looking back on where we've been as a community and where we are today, what the vision is that's being cast by the general plan update, the two main elements of the plan, the policy as well as the plan land use. We want to give you snapshots of those things so that they're firmly planted in your mind. And then for the first time in the history of the City of Fresno, we've included a fiscal analysis in the general plan update. And I want to just pause and say that this is a very historic piece of work for the City of Fresno. In fact, when you go back over the history of the City of Fresno, only on 5 other occasions in our history have we taken up, debated, deliberated, and adopted a long-term plan such as the general plan. This is, of course, the first time since 2002. Prior to that, it was 1984, and then there were a few documents done in the late 1950s and early 1960s, and that's basically it. So this is certainly a substantive piece of work. But for the first time, we're actually looking at the math and looking at where our city will be financially based on the implementation and the direction of the general plan update. We also want to make sure we cover some of the main concerns and, frankly, some of the myths that have generated over the last 4 years about this general plan. And as we've done so much public outreach, it's very easy for one person to hear one little thing and get confused about something they're hearing, and then it turns into an urban legend. So there are some myths we certainly want to debunk this morning, as well as lay out some of the substantive concerns that we've heard that have been addressed in the plan that's before you. Lastly, we'll talk about the development code, as it too is a very significant piece of work. Never since the 1960s has our development code been comprehensively updated, and that's a very important part of the implementation of the general plan update. And then lastly, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about where we were when the 2025 general plan was adopted versus where we are today and where we go from here. So with that, let me jump in. You know, any good strategic plan, whether it's in the private sector and a nonprofit organization, or certainly within a government agency such as the Municipal Services Corporation of the City of Fresno, any good strategic plan always starts with looking back and looking at where we've been and where we are today and what has happened in the interim time. You all are familiar with these pictures as they've been in the map atlas and in other presentations on the general plan, but this was our city in the first 50 years of our existence. The light blue and the dark blue spots or boxes that you see on the map. So it wasn't all that long ago that was our existence on the planet here in the city of Fresno. Now let's fast forward and look at the next 65 years. Everything in red was developed since World War II. The lighter red boxes are those things that happened closer to World War II, and the darker red boxes came along in more recent years. So it's quite clear that we have had a dramatic outward expansion of our city, like many cities in America. But frankly, in assessing urban development, looking across the United States, Fresno rises to the top of cities that really have experienced among the fastest outward expansions in the U.S. Why? Because land is flat. There have been no physical boundary. We haven't had, it took us a long time to get to the river, took us a long time to hit up against our neighbors on the east, and over time, agricultural land has been fairly easily converted to urban purposes. So that is the past over the last 65 years. There are consequences to that form of development, many of them good, but also many of them very serious. The map that you see here before you, and I know it's one that's very familiar, all of the orange boxes and the dark orange or red boxes are either poverty census tracts or extreme poverty census tracts. So when you look at the balance of our city south of Herndon today, it's fair to say, from a bird's eye view, that the overwhelming concern, from my perspective, is the high concentration of poverty that exists in our city. I've shared with many of you that my view as mayor is that we have two choices here. We can look at this problem and say, oh, well, it's just the way it goes. We're not willing to change things enough to try to redirect the course of this city. And if we don't allow ourselves continued outward expansion, it's just going to happen all around us. So why not be a part of the continued suburban traditional growth pattern? It is what it is. It's just going to always be this way. And it's too hard to try to change it. So that's one option that we have. And I call that the run or the fleeing option. The other option is that we face this challenge and we attempt to fight it. And we do everything within our power and within our resources to fix it. So run or fight is my mantra, and my recommendation to you as legislators and to our community is that we face this challenge, that we turn and face it, that we fight with everything we have at our disposal, and we do our best to stop this condition. I don't want to represent to you today that a general plan, the adoption of a general plan overnight, changes these orange and these red boxes. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that as the Municipal Services Corporation, that really almost exclusively, with a few exceptions, has the jurisdiction over regulating building and development, that we ought to be making decisions and developing policy and aligning our resources in such a manner that we have as best chance as possible at addressing these red and these orange boxes, knowing that if we execute perfectly, there are still so many other things beyond our control that will affect whether or not we actually make success or progress on this challenge. But I ask myself, why wouldn't we use our tools? Why wouldn't we do everything we can to line up in support of addressing the concentration of poverty in the city of Fresno? And it's so appropriate that Superintendent Hansen would actually precede this presentation, and to be able to quote him now regularly, which I'm sure we will all do, that the solution to concentrated poverty is concentrated education. Let me also remind you, though, council members, we don't have jurisdiction over schools, but we do have jurisdiction over the neighborhoods that surround those schools. And the best determination of a school's performance is the quality of the neighborhood that the child walks to school in as he or she is going to school. So we know that while we have to do everything we can to support quality and excellence in the classrooms, in the schools, in these neighborhoods, it is our responsibility to consider how we might change the neighborhoods around so that those schools have the best chance possible of actually improving children's lives with education. So with this challenge in mind, we set about updating the general plan. Several of you have joined the council in the middle of this process. Others of you have been involved since the very beginning. But let me just recap for you how this all started. We spent 2.5 years engaging the public and inviting their input on just coming up with the alternatives. So from 2010 to 2012, for 2.5 years, we engaged the public on the future of this community, including over 160 stakeholder interviews, 100 presentations to neighborhood associations, focus groups, and other agencies, 15 community workshops, 7 planning commission presentations, 24 meetings of a specially assembled general plan citizens commission group, all of them public meetings, numerous other presentations to commissions and committees, essentially anyone who had an interest in this topic. In addition to that, we conducted a telephone survey of 600 residents, polling them on their interests and what they wanted to see in the future of the community. A bilingual newsletter was published to make sure, and distributed citywide, to make sure people understood that now was the time to engage in this conversation about the future of the community. A website has been kept updated regularly with all of the documents, all of the meeting notes, and all of the plan materials so that everyone can follow along, as well as regular general plan email updates have gone out. So it is very fair to say, and now reading the last 2 general plans, the 2025 and then the 1984 general plan and the 2035 general plan, that there was an unprecedented level of public input and involvement in this process. But that was just the starting point. And that got us to the spring of 2012, which you'll all remember, standing room only crowd here in council chambers when Alternative A modified was chosen by the supermajority of this body for initiating the general plan update. Now, you'll recall that that moment in time really was just the official starting point of the update of the plan, right? So many of us thought, oh boy, we got an Alternative A vote, we're done. No, 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 that was just the, okay, now we've got to put a plan together that actually makes possible this vision or this alternative that was selected by the legislative body. So another 2 years was spent to make sure that all of those materials came together. All along the way, continued public engagement happened. Staff's job, and you'll recall some of these conversations that we immediately started having after the Alternative A was selected. Members of the community said, that's great, we like the vision, but how can you actually get it done? There are all these barriers. What about this? What about that? Many of us sat in rooms trying to answer those questions, all the while city staff were literally preparing the technical documents, the policy recommendations, and all of the detail to support the vision of Alternative A modified. On a parallel path, the update of the development code has been underway, and we'll talk in a little bit of detail about that. So it's been a tremendous amount of work over the last 2 years. In July of 2014, the draft plan was released. At that time, we told folks, all right, you got 45 days to review this draft plan. We had a city council workshop, planning commission workshop. The draft plan was released to a public audience of about 200 people that was assembled in July on a hot July afternoon in Fresno at Fresno City College. And the 45-day comment period came and went. We had comments from people saying, we need more time. Can you please extend the public comment period? In response to that, we said, okay, let's do another 45 days. So the public comment period got extended to August 8th. During that same period of time, 7 council district workshops were had to reach your constituents and make sure they had all the information they needed to know what was going on with the update of this general plan. And finally, we closed the public comment period on October 9th. At that point, it has been staff's responsibility to evaluate each and every one of the comments that were received in writing by members of the public, evaluate them, prepare a response, and make modifications to the plan as they felt was necessary. On November 25th, the final draft was released after 4 years of input and process. That brings us to today, and as I mentioned, this workshop is intended to really set the stage for the deliberation, the public hearing that will happen next week, and ultimately your vote on this plan. Following this workshop on Monday of next week, we have a public hearing with our Planning Commission. They'll be asked to vote on this plan. Next Thursday, we've got our public hearing scheduled, and then the administration will bring forward on December 18th this plan for your deliberation and a vote. So that's the process, and You know, if you feel tired just hearing the words of everything that we've been doing, join the club. I feel like I've been pregnant for 4 years. And you all will have to take my word for it that that is a very, very, very long time to be pregnant. Carrying this vision, not just the vision, but okay, if we really want this vision, how are we going to make it happen? And all of the work that's gone into getting our city to this point has been a laborious, but I will say an honor to carry the vision and an honor to do the work, but a very laborious process. So that's where we are today. Now, let's take a pause from process, and I want you to imagine with me what we want to see in our city moving forward, and I want to paint a picture for you. So many of you have sat in my conference room, and you know that this urban form, this vision of the city of Fresno sits at the end of my conference room table so that every meeting I'm in, this is what I'm looking at. Many of you have sat in there having meetings with me, and we've talked about, how many of you know the yellow bubble map, right? You're familiar with the yellow bubble map. Well, to put it in technical planning terms, the yellow bubble map is what we call the urban form of the city of Fresno. In other words, the vision. Taking many, many steps back, 30,000-foot view, this is the vision that we're carrying forward in the 2035 general plan. The major features that you see, of course, everything in yellow we envision as a special incentive zone, the infill opportunity zone. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. The corridors in orange, BRT corridors, Blackstone Avenue, Shaw Avenue, Ventura Kings Canyon, and then California Avenue in the future. New growth areas, some immediately available for development, some being held in reserve. Those are the major features, the major vision elements of this plan. Now, I want to ask you to look at another picture and ignore the header for just a moment. Can you see that clearly on your screens? So this is the vision of the urban form that was approved by the City Council in 2002, 12 years ago, the 2025 general plan. It looks pretty similar, don't you think? We've said repeatedly that the 2035 general plan update is not a new vision, that it builds on the vision that was established by the City Council and the Autry administration in 2025. There are a few differences. For example, the yellow bubble area, at the time when this was adopted, only went up to Ashland Avenue. And the city center was defined as really Ashland South. In the ensuing 12 years, we've had another 12 years of deterioration, another 12 years of inaction in many cases. And now our recommendation is that we go all the way up to Herndon, because neighborhoods just south of Herndon are certainly in need of additional attention and incentives in order to avoid their further deterioration. So that change, the blight line, so to speak, has certainly moved. In 1983, residents and city staff and Mayor Whitehurst at the time had the very same concern. At that time, in this plan, they were very concerned about everything south of McKinley. When Mayor Autry ran for mayor in 2000, he was very concerned about everything south of Shaw. Today, we stand here and we talk about everything south of Herndon. So we know one thing is for certain, that if we don't take deliberate and intentional actions, the blight line will just continue to move. And that's very much what we seek to effect with the 2035 general plan. The other differences that you'll notice, the 2025 plan said, hey, we're going to have two growth areas, one in the far north, which has since been opened up and developed, and then Spca. Which was recommended for the specific plan development, not held in urban reserve, but that plan, of course, has since happened. There are a few other differences. You'll notice that that Highway 99 is intensified. The vision at the time was that there would be additional development that would happen along the Highway 99 corridor. We're not necessarily carrying that forward in this particular plan. And then what today we know as the BRT corridors, the 2025 general plan talks about intensity corridors, but they didn't have any real recommendations on what to do to intensify those corridors. It was just identified from an urban form standpoint as sort of the spine of the city, and it was really left at that. So recognizing that the plan update expands on the vision of the 2025 general plan, our mantra inside the administration has been, what we are attempting to do with this plan update is to protect, preserve, and promote. to protect property values, to preserve neighborhoods today that are healthy so that they don't fall into decline, and to promote investment in parts of the city where the decline, unfortunately, is already happening. We know that the vision is not new, so our focus has shifted to implementation, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Just want to call out some highlights of the 2035 General Plan update. I would refer to these as the building blocks of the overall vision, taking it down a couple of layers. Really 7 major building blocks. Number 1, calling out growth, half of it happening in the incorporated areas, the other half in unincorporated areas, phasing of that growth, successful and competitive downtown, developing along BRT, the IOZ, strategic employment centers, and then lastly, a major emphasis on parks in this plan. So let me show you the picture of what those building blocks look like. So first of all, there's been a lot of discussion, and this was certainly the major focus of the Alternative A debate. Just how many units would be built in the existing city limits and just how many would be built in the outskirts, and that became really the defining debate point immediately after the Alternative A adoption. So we had to ask ourselves, how are we going to define infill? All of that arm wrestling had to be done. We had to do really thoughtful analysis to make sure that we were putting forward recommendations that were implementable and that would help us reach our goal. So the first major vision element is that roughly half of investment and development would happen within the existing city limits. All right, so that's the picture you see now. That's our existing city limits. All right, so when we say roughly half in infill areas, we're using the word infill very broadly and saying we're simply saying within existing city limits. The second major building block is that we would establish new growth areas, and that approximately half, roughly half, would happen in those new growth areas. However, a third building block is that we've got 2 growth areas. Growth Area 1 would be immediately available for development upon adoption and completion of the general plan update, but that we would hold back other parts of the new growth areas until certain thresholds are met, and in some cases specific plans are required before that development would happen. So we're phasing new growth. Not a new building block at all, but just a reminder that both in the 2025 plan as well as in this one, a successful and competitive downtown is certainly a building block. Of course, that has been the focus of the Downtown Neighborhood Community Plan, the Fulton Corridor specific plan work that's already been done. Development along BRT corridors, you see that vision element lighting up on your map. Blackstone, Shaw, Ventura, Kings Canyon, and California Avenue. Layering on top of that, even though we're saying infill, we're defining in this plan is really the state definition, anything within the existing city limits, we're saying, but we need to call special attention to this infill opportunity zone area. We're going to have to work extra hard here. We're going to have to put a lot of incentives in place to make different things happen here because they probably won't happen on their own. So that is an important building block of this general plan. Layered on top of that, strategic opportunities for employment centers. In the gray, you see where we've built in industrial, light industrial business park, which will show you some comparisons between 2025 and the 2035 update. So putting all those things together, this really becomes sort of the vision and all of the puzzle pieces of the 2035 general plan. Now, the parks, here's where we are today with our park space. Here's where we envision being with the 2035 update. You can see the difference. Today, 2035 update. A major focus on expanding and improving open space and park space in the 2035 general plan. So that paints a picture of what this plan actually intends to accomplish. We want to now hand out to you, it is another document, but before you freak out about that, this one will help you. You will be very happy to receive this. As I've learned as a layperson leading our organization through this general plan update, there's a lot of words and a lot of stuff in this book, okay? But at the end of the day, as the legislative body, there really are only 2 major things that you are being asked to consider and potentially adopt. There are policies. So there's words that actually mean something besides just background or context or explanation. There are policy statements that will be the actual law once you adopt this plan. And then there are colored boxes on a map, right? So the policies and the planned land uses are really the two major elements of the plan. So what we're handing out to you, because if you're like me, you want policies at a glance. You don't necessarily need to go through a third or fourth or fifth time all 400 pages of the general plan. You're being asked to consider the objectives and the policy statements. That's what will be lifted out of here and will actually become, quote, the law with this plan update. So we thought it would be helpful just to give you those objective and policy statements so that a few weeks from now, when you're being asked to vote on policy, you can quickly look at, you can study these over the next few weeks, and you can really determine, hey, I like this one, I want to change the wording, I need more information on that. So this is a tool to hopefully save you some time and focus your deliberation on the actual policy statements of the plan. With that, I'm going to hand off to Jennifer and ask her now to come and talk to you about the colored boxes on the map, right? So is everybody clear on where we are at this point? Like, you feel good about, what we're talking about? Okay. So spend some time looking at the words, and then we'll now have Jennifer go over what the different colors on the maps mean. There you go.
Good morning. So at the end of the day, the general plan is all about land use policies and colors on the map. So let's talk about the colors on the map. How do the land use designations change from 2025 plan to the plan update? How does that impact our daily lives and how we develop as a community? Residential uses are displayed in shades of yellow and orange. In 2025, residential plan land uses were distributed throughout the community to provide housing options in every area. The plan update shows a very similar housing distribution and options for residents. Residential land uses remain the highest proportion of the development area. Policies to support residential land uses include a range of housing types and diverse neighborhoods. Commercial land uses are shown in shades of red on the map. The 2025 plan showed commercial uses concentrated on high-use corridors such as Blackstone, Herndon, and Shaw. The plan update also envisions commercial uses on high-capacity transportation corridors. However, it provides greater distribution of commercial uses to allow for more accessible neighborhood centers and corridor mixed use. Mixed-use designations are shown in shades of purple. The plan update adds the designation of mixed use, regional mixed use, corridor mixed use, neighborhood mixed use, to broaden the options for development of a blend of land uses, offices, services, shopping, entertainment, and residential-based uses, and residential based on market demand. Policies to support these uses include access to activity centers and local serving neighborhood centers. Industrial uses are typically displayed in shades of gray. The 2025 plan designated light industrial and heavy industrial land uses to provide quality jobs and employment opportunities. The plan update also calls for job creation and provides employment center options. The plan update adds the business park designation, which is a more campus-like setting for research, large assembly and distribution, warehouse and showroom facilities. This is shown in a pale pink lavender shade. The plan update decreases the amount of planned industrial land uses south of Shaw. Policies to support the employment land uses include connecting residents to job and standards for development. Public uses are displayed in blue. The 2025 plan distributed public facilities such as schools and institutions throughout the community. The plan update reflects a similar distribution of land uses through the community, reflecting the most current trends in school design and placement. The policies to support public and institutional uses include neighborhoods centered around schools and the promotion of educational opportunities within all neighborhoods. Parks and open space is generally shown in shades of green. The 2025 plan identified locations for parks and open space. The parks are designated in dark green with the 15-minute walk patterns in a lighter shade around each park. The plan update identifies a large number of new parks and park locations and calls for the identification of future parks in established neighborhoods as opportunities arise. The bright green represents the new parks and their associated 15-minute walk shed. Policies to support these land uses include centralized park locations and coordinations with school districts. As the superintendent stated earlier, there is opportunity for us to partner with the school districts on park locations. So how did we address and consider these items? How did we review them and determine whether or not they would be appropriate for our community? The plan has been analyzed in a number of ways. Each of the land uses proposed have been evaluated to determine their impacts per CEQA. Using a master environmental impact report assists development consistent with the plan to occur in a more streamlined way to save time and money. An MEIR may be used for more than 5 years as long as it is reevaluated to determine if substantial changes have occurred and supplemented as necessary. The city has also assessed the fiscal impacts of the planned land uses. And here to present an overview is Renee Smith, Assistant City Attorney.
Well, good morning, Council. How are you? And Doug, nice working for you. I'm here this morning to share with you my evaluation of the fiscal analysis that was prepared by Economic and Planning Systems, Inc., EPS, and most specifically by Jason Moody, who I'd like to introduce you to this morning. Oh, he moved on me. And he will be providing you next week with the more technical detail associated with this study. But I'm going to provide you sort of with my analysis of his analysis. So when I was reviewing the analysis, I was specifically focused on what are the fiscal impacts to the general fund and to services going forward, and what does the growth mean? How impactful is that growth going to be in those areas? And the one thing that really stood out to me upon my review is that the analysis reveals that there's a distinct economic advantage for development in existing incorporated areas as compared to unincorporated areas that require annexation. With input from city staff at the police, fire, parks, and public works department, EPS developed a detailed study based on the geography of the areas, both the incorporated and the unincorporated areas. And what they did is they identified distinct fiscal characteristics using key factors such as fiscal outcomes, including tax rate areas, assessed valuations or AVs, and market values, household incomes, and public service costs. Again, bottom line, the study is clear that property tax revenue is greater in incorporated or infill areas, and cost to the city to provide the services and infrastructure in incorporated areas is less than in unincorporated areas. Let me explain why it is to the city's advantage to focus on growth in incorporated areas first and then continue a balanced approach as we move forward. I'll start with revenue because it's very clear-cut and doesn't rely so much on the crystal ball assumptions that the expense side does. But once an area is annexed and developed, the city of Fresno receives much less property tax revenue from that annexed property than it receives from existing incorporated areas. This is due primarily to the tax sharing agreement that we have with the county. Per the terms of the tax sharing agreement, the county retains its share of the base property tax plus 62% on new development on those annexed properties into perpetuity, or until we do a new tax sharing agreement. But not only do they get to keep the revenue, but they no longer provide the service. And so the expense of maintenance also transfers to the city. So putting it in regular dollars and cents that hopefully we can all understand is, on average, for every $1,000 in new assessed valuation, the city receives about $2.90 in those property tax areas in the unincorporated sections of town. In contrast, when there's new growth and we start receiving property tax from the new growth areas in an unincorporated, we will only be receiving $1.95. That's a pretty significant difference. Other factors that contribute towards the city receiving more in property tax from incorporated areas is that we receive much larger property tax allocations from the city's older neighborhoods in downtown. It's just a larger area. The study also provides strong evidence that existing AV in the city's older neighborhoods and downtown is depressed relative to other areas of the city due to both market conditions as well as lower resale activity. Consequently, the degree that growth is targeted within these areas stimulates investment, revitalization in those existing properties, which results in lending to the reassessment of those properties, which leads to substantial increases in property tax revenue over time. So, between the tax sharing agreement, the size of property allocations from the city's older neighborhoods and downtown, coupled with the wide margin for improvements, the revenue advantage corresponding to the incorporated area is almost 50% more than in the unincorporated areas. So now, moving on and looking at some of the cost side of the picture. You know, the study also clearly demonstrated to me that the cost of providing services in incorporated areas is cheaper than in unincorporated areas. One of the reasons for this is that as the geographic footprint expands, it requires additional travel time for our safety services, particularly our police department. You know, this is as they're having to drive further, they also can do fewer calls because it takes more time. And so that really does drive the cost. Also, our public safety and our roadways on those major arterials are not neighborhood specific, so options for other funding sources don't apply for them. So it's typically the general fund that we will have to go to in that case. What this particular slide presents is both ends of the spectrum related to revenue and expenses between the incorporated and unincorporated areas. You know, the reality is it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle on this or somewhere in between. We just don't know where everything's going to go yet and how fast it's going to go at build out. But basically, assuming, you know, we're at the horizon in 2035, what these scenarios represent is 100% build out in the incorporated area as compared to a 70% build out in the unincorporated area. So what you're seeing here is that tax revenue in the incorporated area is $128.9 million as compared to $102 million. Also, and what we're doing is we're comparing optimal service in those growth areas. And by optimal service, I mean 1.5 officers per 1,000, 4 firefighters per engine, a 30% increase in parks staff for the maintenance for all of the new parks, and all of the public works services as described in the general plan. So based on these scenarios, you know, the 100% build out, if that were to occur, basically what you are seeing is that there would be a net of $45.1 million that could go into the general fund to help us improve services in the non-new growth areas. As opposed to in the incorporated area, if it builds out first or 70% of it builds out too fast, then we will actually see a draw from our general fund in those existing neighborhoods. So there are any number of given scenarios that could be presented comparing these items, but regardless of the assumptions that you use, the result is the same in that it's less expensive to provide services in the existing incorporated areas. Now, whatever that margin is will change, but the bottom line is the same. So really, the story here is that growth needs to be managed in such a way that revenues can support and ideally improve in services across the city, rather than in a fashion that requires continued subsidy from existing neighborhoods to the new ones. For me, the fiscal analysis was very conclusive and very persuasive in that there is a distinct economic advantage to developing incorporated areas first and going forward with a balanced approach. So with that, I would like to turn it back over to Jennifer to talk to you about the myths and concerns addressed.
Thank you, Renee. Throughout the last 5 years, there's been an active and ongoing dialogue with residents, business owners, institutions, and others about the general plan. Much of this dialogue has resulted in an improved plan. However, unfortunately, there are some mistruths and misconceptions that still remain today, and we would like to address some of those. It has been said that the general plan intends for Fresno to be more dense than San Francisco. This is a myth. Fresno's current housing density, unit density, is similar to neighboring cities, and its anticipated future housing density in 2035 will only be slightly higher, which is still less than a quarter of San Francisco's current housing unit density. Fresno's current population density is in line with our neighbors, and the estimated future population density will still be less than 1/3 of San Francisco's current population density. A concern has been expressed that the general plan will repeal community and specific plans. The community and specific plans will not be repealed when the general plan is adopted. At a later date, the city will work with residents to identify policies and protections to carry over into future specific plans and codes. Until that time, these plans will remain in place. It has been said that the plan update will constrain greenfield developers or result in a moratorium on greenfield development. This is a myth. There are over 10,000 mapped lots in inventory at this time. These are pre-existing entitlements that could be activated and built immediately. As described earlier, there are growth areas west of Highway 99 in southwest, east, and southeast Fresno that will be available for development as soon as the plan update is approved. There is no moratorium or shortage of opportunity. There is a concern that the plan update is too weak to promote infill. One of the 17 objectives initiated by the City Council states that roughly 1/2 of new development will occur in existing incorporated areas. To that end, the Planning Director will provide an annual report describing the city's compliance with the plan and progress toward meeting the goals and objectives to City Council, and prepare every 5 years an updated plan for achieving this goal with recommended appropriate policy amendments, and also new implementation strategies to meet this goal by 2035. The rate of progress toward meeting this goal is not expected to occur on a linear or one-to-one basis. Development in existing incorporated areas versus unincorporated areas is likely to progress in an uneven pattern. depending on the schedule of relevant key incentive programs, such as those related to BRT and the impact of market forces. Rather, meeting this goal is expected to occur at or near the close of the plan horizon in 2035. Tools such as the Infill Opportunity Zone, infrastructure investments by the city, and the integration of planned land uses with the Development Code will enhance and support development within the city's existing footprint. A concern has been raised that the plan update does not address the needs of underserved neighborhoods, especially in South Fresno. It is true that historic land use patterns in Fresno have headed north, away from the city's core. However, the plan update calls for the majority of new development to occur along the city spine, in the city center, and areas surrounding established neighborhoods south of Shaw, rather than a move farther north. The administration and council have already approved funding for a specific plan in southwest Fresno. The administration intends to prioritize additional funds for a specific plan for the Roosevelt Neighborhood Planning Area and is working with District 5 to identify needed funding. There is a concern that industrial uses are planned near low-income neighborhoods. The plan update does not expand industrial uses. The plan calls for new industrial uses to be buffered from surrounding uses. And changes from the initiation draft of the plan update relocate industrial land uses from southwest to northwest Fresno away from residential neighborhoods. There is a concern that the plan does not adequately address disadvantaged unincorporated communities, otherwise known as DUCs. The city is required to allocate land uses that support affordable housing through its housing element update. The current housing element, consistent with this general plan update, will be updated again in 2015. As part of the housing element update, DUCs will be thoroughly analyzed and evaluated per state requirements. There is a concern that the plan update does not promote parks in underserved neighborhoods. The city recognizes the value to neighborhoods to have open space and parks nearby. The city will identify, where appropriate, joint use opportunities in siting parks with other public facilities. Additionally, the city will seek public input in park planning and will adopt and implement a comprehensive financing strategy for land acquisition, park development, operations, and maintenance. A concern was raised that the plan update eliminates affordable housing options. This is not accurate. There are a number of policies that advocate for a range of housing options and incentives for affordable housing. Affordability is a direct result of lack of housing supply compared to housing demand. Fresno's vacancy rate fluctuates between 5 and 8%, which is within national norms. Just yesterday, Trillia.com named Fresno one of the top 10 housing markets in the country, along with Boston, Seattle, San Diego, Dallas, and other major metropolitan cities, citing strong job growth and a housing market that is not overvalued. A statement was made that the plan update does not do enough to limit the overconcentration of liquor stores in low-income areas. The fact is that the general plan is a vision document that calls for a healthy, vibrant community. The Development Code is the implementing tool that can deal with issues like this. The community will have an opportunity to address the location, separation, and number of packaged liquor stores as part of the Development Code. It has been said that the plan update requires individuals to give up their preferred method of transportation. This is a myth. The plan, in fact, provides more options and encourages a variety of transportation modes. It gives everyone the option to choose not only their preferred method, but to actually use it. So there will be opportunities for pedestrians, bicyclists, transit riders, and those who would like to continue to drive their personal vehicle. A concern was raised that the plan does not do enough to improve traffic flow. Fresno has one of the best commutes in the country. Forbes ranked 75 small cities based on commute times to determine the best. Fresno landed 4th. The cities were scored positively based on the number of workers that got to work in under 20 minutes. The plan, in fact, balances the need to minimize traffic congestion while not overbuilding transportation systems that are too costly to maintain and operate. It has been said that the plan will eliminate cul-de-sacs. This is a myth. The plan is a vision that calls for more connected neighborhoods with easy access to shopping, services, recreation, and more. The Development Code is the implementation tool that will address development standards, which will continue to allow cul-de-sacs. There is a concern that the plan update does not do enough to preserve farmland. This is unwarranted. The plan does not expand the sphere of influence, protecting surrounding agricultural land. Additionally, the plan contains policy language requiring the development of a farmland preservation program. It has been said that you can't do a general plan update without the Development Code. This is a myth. As a matter of fact, the last time in Fresno a wholly new development code was prepared to complement a general plan was in 1964. The same base code we have today, strapped together with duct tape and baling wire. After the general plan is adopted, the vision of the plan will be to fit it into the draft framework of a new, more user-friendly development code. It will be circulated by early spring and will have opportunities for input and conversations on how it will be implemented. Concern has been expressed that some of the planned land uses do not accurately reflect pre-approved developments or subdivisions. This is a myth. The plan allows for all pre-existing entitlements to develop regardless of classification in the adopted plan. It has been said that the plan update isn't needed. The 2025 plan is sufficient. This is also a myth. Fresno Municipal Code, Chapter 12, Subsection 605, Section 605, Subsection G, states that the general plan must be updated at least every 10 years. The plan update process allows for each subsequent plan to reflect not only evolving patterns of development, but consumer preferences as well. It has been said that if we restrict new growth areas, that development will just leapfrog to Madera, Kerman, Sanger, Clovis. This is a myth. The conditions for development have changed significantly in California with the passage of Senate Bill 375 in 2008 and the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act of 2014. These laws will apply to all California cities and counties equally and will impact how and whether leapfrog development can occur. So how will we implement the general plan? It was stated previously that the last time the city completely overhauled its development code was in 1964. A lot has changed since then. Fresno has received poor ratings for its development review process, and much of that falls back to a development code held together with patches. Just like a computer operating system that has updates and patches, eventually it must be rewritten from scratch to make it faster and more powerful. It is time for a new operating system. Last spring, the business-friendly Fresno Task Force specifically called for the implementation of the development code after the general plan was adopted. What does the development code do? The development code defines what you can build and how you can build it. The development code addresses the issues of process as well as issues of design, such as buffer zones around industrial uses, the number of liquor stores allowed in a neighborhood, how and where cul-de-sacs can be built. It is a guidebook for development of the physical realm of the city. It implements the vision of the general plan. And now to present the vision, policy, and implementation is the mayor.
Thank you, and we're just wrapping up here. And Council President, just want to call to your attention while you were out, there were a couple of key points that you missed. So questions about density, and are we trying to become as dense as San Francisco? And probably one of the most important points that I want to draw to your attention, the question about, well, if we restrict in any way or change our vision or anything like that, everybody's just going to go to Madera, Kerman, Sanger, Clovis. I put this in here for you, so I want to make sure.
That's one of my favorite points, Mayor.
I know, and it's a really good point, and it's a good question. So we've been contemplating this, and what we want to draw to your attention is the fact that things have dramatically changed when it comes to development in California, even in the last few months with the adoption of the 2014 Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. It's not the case anymore that people can just punch out and do some of the same stuff that's happened all over the state. We now are in an environment where we've got to have water, and it can't just be sucking it up out of the ground. So we actually think, given where the work we've done to make sure we have a balanced water portfolio and knowing what's happening all around us, we think this is, the things have actually changed quite a bit. We started to see change with SB 375, and as that continues to be implemented, I think that also is going to affect leapfrog development, but certainly the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is as well. So I just wanted to make sure you didn't miss that point. There are also some really good graphics on where we're going to be if we fully built out the plan, what the densities would be. It's very visual, so I invite you to share that with your constituents.
We call that the Steve Brandow slide.
Yes, in fact,
good.
you got it. You got it. We'll put it on your website.
Okay.
All right. So vision, policy, implementation. I want you to get used to those three words in that order. Vision, policy, implementation. We know clearly that just having a certain vision doesn't necessarily mean that it will happen. If that were the case, when the city adopted the 2025 general plan in 2002, the next day or in days and months and weeks and years that followed, our urban form would look differently. So we know for certain that there's something beyond just vision that must be done if we are to achieve the urban form that we desire, both in the 2025 plan as well as in the update. So I don't know about you, but frankly, this question haunts me. If we've been talking about this urban form in some cases since the 1980s, and yet here we are today, and we don't really see appreciable different outcomes, what in the heck is it going to take? I know you think about that. Frankly, that question keeps me up at night. As I've evaluated how you move a city in a certain direction, what tools we have, we know that the city alone cannot do this, but I believe our responsibility is about 30% of the equation, and we better darn well execute to our best ability with the 30% of the tools that we have. And I don't think anyone could argue that we have successfully done that over the last 25 years as we've been talking about this urban form. In fact, there are things that have literally been talked about since the 1980s that have not been done today, most notably the Development Code. So vision, policy, implementation. Let's just take a quick look at how we line up on these things. First of all, as I stated earlier, the vision of the 2025 general plan and the plan update are pretty much the same. We want balanced growth, infill and new growth areas. We see downtown as being vibrant. We envision mixed-use intensity corridors. And even in the 2025 general plan, we talked about activity centers, which we've incorporated into this vision. But I believe what's different today and what will be different over the coming weeks, months, and years is the focus on policy and implementation. So in the 2035 general plan, we went from a vision firmly established in 2002 to now, okay, so what do the policies really need to be? If you read this document over again and you look for, okay, they called out a vision, but what did they do from a policy standpoint to try to implement that vision? There are some aspects of policy that you might say, oh, okay, that's a good start. But what we have in the 2035 plan update is a much more detailed, thoughtful policy response. And you all know, as the policymakers in this organization, that policy does in fact matter. It alone doesn't get the job done. It's policy plus implementation. But we believe that in the plan update, we've done a much more thorough job of thinking through policies that would actually help us achieve this vision. For example, the roughly half. I mean, it must be a big deal because we sure have fought over it a lot. If it's not a big deal, then nobody would care. But apparently there's something in there that makes people say, like, oh, whoa, 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 they're serious this time. We better make sure we really know what that means. That is a policy upgrade. There was no reference to that sort of specific balance in the 2025 general plan. A lot of debate over infill. Well, what do you mean, Mayor? What do you mean by infill? Well, we've defined it precisely now. Instead of just in an urban form document in the book, kind of drawing a picture, you know, a line around Ashland South, we said, no, we're actually going to define infill, and then on top of that, we're going to define an incentive area. The 2025 plan allowed for a sphere expansion. In this plan, our policy is going to be no sphere expansion, and we think that has some substance as well. We are specifically phasing new growth areas. As recommended by Councilmember Brand's infill task force, we recognize that development, if it is in fact the case that it's less money to service existing parts of the city, then we better have development impact fees that reflect that. And that reflect the fact that infrastructure has already been built out. You shouldn't have to pay twice, development community. Well, we have established as a matter of policy in this draft plan that it will be the case that our development fee structure will line up in support of that vision for the city. And that, too, was missing in the last version of this vision. Public infrastructure. As a matter of policy, we state in this plan the public infrastructure investments will be prioritized based on where it's needed the most. In other words, the oldest parts of the city will be prioritized for infrastructure investments. We also articulate as a matter of policy in this plan that new growth will pay for infrastructure and for maintenance. And there'll be a healthy debate over the implementation of that policy. And then lastly, I think worth noting, land use designations that interpret the vision with more detail, those colored boxes on the map. When you look at Blackstone Avenue and Shaw Avenue in the 2025 plan, it's just all red boxes. In this particular plan update, we're saying, you know what, let's actually articulate and describe different variations of mixed use and establish those land use designations to make it easier for the private sector to build out the vision we hold for our community. So we believe that the vision today, as a result of the 2035 general plan update, is thoroughly backed up by policy. But as Lee Brand would be the first to acknowledge and be the one to beat this drum probably as much as I will over the next 2 years, Lee will be right there with me on this point. It's all about implementation. Vision is great. It's not all that difficult to decide on a vision. Policy is important, and we'll do some arm wrestling over that, but that alone won't get us outcomes. But we know that implementation will. If in 1983, Mayor Whitehurst and members of the public were saying, you know, we really should have a development code that allows for mixed uses in 1983, and to this day, we still really haven't implemented that policy, well, there's a pretty good answer to your question, why hasn't this plan been built out as envisioned over the last 25 years? Implementation is the key. We've got to be intentional with our efforts and our resources, and I'm very pleased to report to you today, we've already started. Some of the most important implementation pieces are already underway or near completion, just simply awaiting the adoption of this plan. For example, the development code. It is a really big deal to be at this point, and we still have a lot of work to do. We expect by the end of March you'll be looking at the new development code, but having a development code that actually enables the private sector to do what we're saying we want done. I put it this way. For a long time, in fact, since 2002 when the 2025 plan was adopted, it was like our head turned. If you think of the city of Fresno as a body, our head turned, our eyes went somewhere else, and we said, we want to go in a different direction. But our shoulders, our torso, our hips, our like everything else continue to go in the same old direction. How in the world do you move a city forward when the head turns, the vision changes, but the body doesn't? The policy and the implementation that happens through the development code is our body turning to pursue the vision we're saying that we want. The Downtown Neighborhood Community Plan, the Fulton Corridor Specific Plan, all waiting for this plan to be adopted, and then it will be ready to be put in place. The same thing with the Downtown Development Code. We argued about whether or not to do that, and we basically said the same thing. We can say we want mixed-use development and restoration of old buildings in downtown, but our code makes it illegal. We've got to change the code. That is now ready for adoption and a significant milestone for implementation. Things that are in progress. That will be coming to you over the next year. Development Impact Fee Update. We already are underway with the Nexus study to really try to figure out, making sure that the incentive is in place for the private sector to do the type of investment we want in existing parts of the city. Business-friendly Fresno, a work in process, a joint recommendation from Councilmember Brand and from my administration. You know, we know that these projects are going to be difficult. The last thing in the world we want is for a development department that makes it even more difficult, and that is certainly a focus of Business-friendly Fresno. Our code task force, council mayor task force, just getting started, but I think those of you who are active on the task force would acknowledge that we are getting over the target when it comes to asking questions about how we take care of our existing building stock. We've spent decades in this building getting really pretty darn good at figuring out how to expand our city, but really at the end of the day, only 1,000 people or 1,000 families a year may buy a new home. Meanwhile, 135,000 family units live in existing building stock, and we have spent very little time over trying to figure out how do we make sure that those neighborhoods and those buildings remain intact and stay in a good condition over time. And that's the subject of the Code Task Force. There'll be lots of recommendations coming from that group, but the work is already underway. very exciting development proposals, South Stadium area, Southwest specific plan, some funding already available, work just getting started on that. That will be a very early and important implementation step. High-speed rail is a big difference between where we are today and where we were in 2002, and the planning for the station is already underway. Bus rapid transit, great example of an early public investment along the intensity corridors. And then lastly, we've seen this come up with both business-friendly Fresno as well as the Code Task Force. We know that we're missing opportunities because of a deficit in technology. Our staff has a much harder time with jobs that are already very hard because we don't equip them with technology tools that can make their jobs a lot easier. So we've got to spend some money on technology to support this vision. But thankfully, we've got a staff committee headed up by Renee Smith that's working on that. Things that I identify as critical success factors that implementation has not started yet, but these are the top of my list projects to work on upon adoption of this plan. Number one, critical success factor, infill opportunity zone. That has to work. It has to be meaningful. There have to be real tools and values that we can put into place to incent people to reinvest in their property south of Herndon. We may require state legislation. There's just a lot of effort that's going to have to be made to make sure it's more than just a yellow bubble on a map, that it's actually an existing working opportunity zone. Strategic rezoning of downtown and BRT corridors, which I'll leave that for another discussion. North Fulton development opportunity, the Housing Authority is undertaking a process to put together a development plan for the north of Fulton Mall, and the council and I involved in advising on that process. And then, as was mentioned earlier, Roosevelt Neighborhood Specific Plan. The administration's recommending that in addition to Southwest Specific Plan, then we need to move forward on a Southeast Specific Plan, and we'll bring forward proposals for that over the next couple of months. And then, as I mentioned, the work of our staff committee on technology, we're going to have to find a way to budget for the tools that are needed. So I believe when I consider the major steps, have a good vision, then have some thoughtful policy. I believe this plan takes us light years ahead from a policy standpoint, and that's a big accomplishment. But if we don't actually move forward on implementation, then we'll be here 20 years from now saying, why in 2014 didn't things change when everybody thought they would? So we know this is really the most important point. And when I look at the things that are already being done or are underway, I'm cautiously optimistic that maybe this time we have a chance at actually realizing this vision for our community. So in closing, let me say a big thank you to the City Attorney's Office, who has been so instrumental over the last 4 years in developing this plan. Doug Sloan, Shannon Chafin, who literally spent hours not just keeping his newborn baby up, but actually taking care of getting this general plan to the point now with an outside firm. But we're very grateful for Shannon's support, and Talia, of course, has been a great support as well, stepping into Shannon's shoes. But anyway, these guys have done yeoman's work, and really we want to thank them on behalf of the administration. Last piece, I think Jennifer just wanted to make sure you know what the next steps are. So Jennifer, why don't you come on up, and then we'll close up and invite your comments and questions.
So thank you, Mayor. This is a huge monumental step. So the next step is to certify and approve the MEIR, to approve the general plan update, and we anticipate both of those to occur on December 18th. Refine the development code to align with the approved general plan over the next 90 days. Public review and staff revisions of the development code following that in the spring of 2015, and then present the development code to City Council for final approval and implementation of the general plan.
All right, so thank you very much for your attention this morning. We anticipated being about an hour long. We're at an hour 7 minutes, so we got pretty close to our deadline. We may have been long over what your deadline was for us, but thought it was really important that you had a strategic overview of all of the elements of the plan. Over the next few weeks, we'll be taking it apart with your input and ultimately adopting this plan, hopefully by the end of the year. But thought it would be a support to you to make sure you've got a good overview like this before we take it into the public hearing and the adoption. So with that, we're happy to respond to any questions or comments you may have.
Right on, Mayor. Thank you. And I'll get the 7 minutes back up here from these council members. And plus, we have opportunity to talk next Thursday once the public that's the public's opportunity to pitch in, and then we can respond there, and then we can also respond on the 18th. So I don't know how much we'll get today, but Councilman Brand, you're up first.
I'll keep it brief. Member Capriolio. I've been here since 2009, and I think almost really after the first year, we started on the general plan. So there's a lot of work, a lot of time, and so many people that have put a lot of time, including our mayor, in this plan. Just only, again, a few comments on Renee's discussion of the fiscal analysis. This is the thing I looked at back in 2012 that shows really a direct nexus between a general plan and our general fund in terms of how we've evolved over the last 50 years to really unsustainable levels of service without the tax base and with declining, underperforming neighborhoods and overusing services. So, it's a step, a big step, to resolve that. And I saw too that on the on newer developments that it's under it was the fair and equitable payments that any commercial residential will follow a CFD model that will actually expand over the current one, which would actually, cover all the normal stuff like the streets, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, but it's actually getting into public safety. Is that correct?
The CFDs cover just providing the services, but they do not cover services such as public safety.
Okay. Is that planned in the future?
That's a policy discussion we'll have to take up, but I want to point out that the analysis provided by EPS already assumes that future costs would be covered by CFD, so that delta, that $15 million deficit is still assumes that CFDs are in place in all the new growth areas.
Yeah, because, we all know, anybody who's been here for a couple of years, that there's so many major capital needs from streets and on that we simply don't have the money, and we can't dig the hole any deeper. The Spca is now SADA. I don't know why it changed names, but just one comment on that. Andreas and I had worked on that a couple of years ago. We had recommended breaking that into at least 3 or 4 parts. I see it kind of suggesting a staged implementation, but I guess it's not formally broken into pieces. Because the area I think first would be the one on the northeast corner would be.
There were a series of stages and villages called out in the Spca plan, but the Spca plan was never finished and was never adopted by the council. So as we move forward, the council will need to consider how and when it wants to begin a new process of specific planning for that area and how it would be broken out and how that would occur in terms of a timeline.
Yeah, the area on the northeast corner would really be that has a Clovis Unified proposed campus would be the first one. And again, even that's, I talked to them a year ago, and they were in like 2025 or 2022. And then the one, of course, that may have the campus, but those are so far out in the future. And Councilman Brandel, that was about $4 million, by the way, on your question. And that's been discussed in detail, too, during the water debate about that. Parks, I like the plan. Just like to see more emphasis on trails, and particularly trails that really link the entire city. There was an article in the Bee last week about the trail in Copper River, and I got a couple of calls. Well, why don't we have trails in southeast and south? Well, we want to get a trail system, and I think we need to be more focused on grants and other funding sources to really make it a citywide project. And just finally, and the mayor talked about the challenges that we face, because this is a very, very ambitious plan, much more than I was on the Planning Commission in 2002, and that was an ambitious plan that really, for the most part, just really never really got implemented, fell short. But one of the key elements will be finding the funding for infrastructure, because we have all these EPA, AB 32, SB 3, all these mandates from the state and federal government, and really no funding to meet the mandate. So I'm hoping that we can find massive help from the state and federal government to provide the infrastructure along 41, downtown, and all the other areas that we're trying to revitalize, because I knew from the Infill Act that there's currently not a business model that supports, by and large, infill development without giving, one, the infrastructure put in, and two, having the incentives to make it work. And I also, related to that, Renee had talked about the financing and, trying to find, the development impact fees that will match. And I think it's been 2005, as I recall, since the last time we did an evaluation of parks, public safety, and all the other impact fees. And I think they should be updated every 5 years to get a true nexus. I think the software out there now is precise enough that you can get a direct nexus into the cost to build and move on and pay for it. Then the question, does it pay for itself? I think it can, if it's done right, pay for itself. And that's all I have. Again, I'll save it all for later, but I want to thank everybody, including the mayor, for all the hard work, and council members, too, that have been here for as longer than I have, that have put a lot of work in this, too. Thank you.
Screen is clear, so I don't know if council members are holding their powder on this, but I was going to ask a couple questions, Mayor. We've been getting a lot of emails from one of the specific plans, and it's actually borders Councilman Blong's and my district, the Highway City specific
Staff
plan.
actually answered that.
What's that?
Staff actually answered that question
Yeah,
already.
staff could answer that.
No,
yeah,
no,
right.
they already did.
Well, I know, but I want to answer it publicly as well, because. Oh, you did while I was gone.
Yes, that's why I said.
Oh, I want. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Well, then I'm gonna need to hear that again. We're just getting inundated with emails, and then I know there's other specific plans around the city as well. So I want to be prepared for that in the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. The adoption of the general plan will not repeal any community or specific plans. The city will work with the residents to ensure that all of the protections that exist in those community-specific plans are carried over into a future plan or code adoption. So it could be incorporated into the development code, could be incorporated into a new specific plan that would be initiated by the City Council. Until those protections carry over, the plans will remain in place.
Okay. All right. Cool. I just kind of needed that on the record, and I didn't hear you talk about it earlier. Another question that I was going to ask. On Land Use Chapter 3, on page 317, do you guys have your copies of the plan? No? Oh, okay. This isn't the little highlighted section. This is the... It says in a commentary, I don't get the commentary sections, but in a commentary, it talks about the planning director. This is page 317. Planning director will provide an annual report describing the city's compliance with the plan and progress toward meeting the goals and objectives to City Council, and prepare every 5 years an updated plan for achieving this goal with recommended appropriate policy amendments and also new implementation strategies necessary to meet this goal by 2035. So it sounds like it's kind of a review process that in the future, at the 5-year mark, we have the planning director would come in and make policy recommendations. Now, that worries me a little bit, that when that day happens. So would that be...
Sorry, what worries you? What day? When what day happens?
When this day happens at year 5 to make policy recommendations. Year number 5.
Yeah. And
okay.
So
There's
when
a
we do
review
the next
process that
update,
happens at year
right?
number 5, where the planning director can come in and make recommendations to make sure we hit targets or goals, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, but are those still short? I know we've had the discussion, and you and I have had the discussion about mandates, that none of these numbers are mandates, they're simply goals that we're...
Well, I think if you read the plan, it's clear that what we've said is these are it's clear what's a goal, what's an objective and what's a policy. And in the commentary, we've identified that we know it's not going to be a linear implementation, that the 5842 roughly new growth infill, it's going to happen in a staggered fashion over the life of the plan. We've made that clear in the document. But what we also are saying is we're not going to accidentally fall into a revitalized Blackstone corridor. We're not going to accidentally improve neighborhoods, south of Herndon. We have to be very intentional. And so we believe that we need regular, systematic updates and reports to the council. And frankly, there'll be so many different items that are coming before you as we implement these various policies and goals. Like almost every single item is going to have another separate policy that we have to bring forward and get your adoption of, right? So there's still a lot of work to be done, but to maybe address your concern is, whoa, are we saying, in fact, we are going to have a specific benchmark where we better be at 5842 or else that there's going to be a lawsuit? And in response to that, I say, I think the balance of the plan is clear, and how in the world can we actually achieve the goals and the visions, policies, and objectives of the plan if we're not regularly updating you? I mean, we're saying these plans have sat on the shelf in the past. We'd better be bringing you updates. We'd better be telling you where we think we're missing it. Boy, it's not happening. Let's reevaluate why it's not. I mean, that's going to have to be a part of the regular ethos here in this building. So
my point within that, and I absolutely want updates, even on an annual basis. But but you answered my question. Now, however, in answering that, you made me think of something else. The 5842 language that you just mentioned, that was in the alternate A plan adopted by council in 2012, but that's been replaced by roughly 50-50 language, right?
Roughly half. And
roughly half.
The
right.
The tables in the plan, the math is all there, but the policy directive is roughly half.
Roughly half.
Right.
So there's no 5842 language in this plan currently.
No, it's.
Okay.
However, there are tables that lay out where we see, the types of units and where they're going to be. And if you did the math is there.
What does that math come out to?
5842.
5842.
So it's on. Wouldn't this be page 121? Isn't that where the math? So.
Okay.
It's the basis. It's the basis for the policy language of roughly half.
Okay. Because we've heard in recent weeks a lot of people interested in making that stronger, that commitment to those numbers, and then we have a different part of the community that's
right
not so thrilled about the concept of mandates. And so, but what you're telling me, there's still no mandating, and at the year 5 mark, if things aren't going as projected by this plan, we're not going to do some very aggressive or abrasive readjustment to the plan and say, okay, now that 75% of building in Fresno is going to non-infill projects and only 25% to infill, we've got to correct this and make it 50-50. So we're going to put a moratorium on this type of growth or a mandate, any type of mandate against this type of growth.
There's no language in this document that suggests that would be that the city intends to do that. So, but it's very clear that we intend to make steady progress on all the goals in this book. Steady progress is, to me, if I won't be mayor in 5 years, but as a member of the public in 5 years, if we're at 75-25. I would certainly be raising my voice to say, boy, you're missing it on steady progress. What can be done to make some progress on areas where you're not? And evaluate, what are we doing wrong? What else has to be in place in order to invite the type of investment that we want?
Okay. That was just my last question for today.
Sure.
So, Councilman Baines.
Thanks, Council President. I was going to stay silent, but I wanted to just kind of offer some thoughts on this last exchange I heard, especially as it related to what we do in 5 years. If, it's 75 new growth and 25 infill, and obviously that flies in the face of what we're trying to accomplish with the plan. And what I want to remind this council, I won't be here either in that 5-year review, but I may be a person commenting from the public, is that our main goal as elected is really fiscal stewardship of the city. And I think what has been demonstrated, and I want to give a lot of kudos to the administration and supporting staff for really outlining what simply a new growth strategy costs us. And I want to thank Member Brand too for bringing that up. 2 years ago, I think you was really when you really began the analysis on that. And this analysis, some of this analysis was included in this. So I certainly hope that if the balance is 75-25, and we as whoever this council is evaluating this and realizes the cost that it has to our taxpayers, that there's a meaningful discussion of adjustment that needs to happen so that we can course correct and be better fiscal stewards. Because in my opinion, that's what this land use policy is about too. Not only are we trying to, recognize that we've left a whole segment of the city behind, and clearly if we continue to do that, we see that at some point, if current trends continue, the entire city will be in low poverty areas if it just continues to go that way. That we as policymakers step in and course correct to make sure that we're bringing balance to the equation. So I don't want to leave this conversation without saying that I don't think the word moratorium is discussed, and I wouldn't be one to suggest that, but I would certainly hope that there would be action to make sure that we're not digging ourselves deeper in financial debt from a city standpoint. And that's what this body will have to decide in that first 5-year review. And I hope it's a thoughtful discussion. I don't foresee a moratorium, but there should be some action. And the form that action takes, you'll probably be here, and I'll be bending your ear about it. But I want to be clear that I don't think it should just be hands up in the air if we're far afield of where we're going.
Makes sense. All right, then. I think that concludes our workshop for today. So again, we are meeting next Thursday on this same item with public comment at 5 o'clock at the Convention Center, Exhibit Halls 2 and 3. Is that correct? And so invite any members of the public that you know that would like to comment on the general plan. That will be their last best time. And then the following week, provided we get done with public comment next week, on the following week, council will take their vote on the general plan. We have a couple more items on today's, and they're small items on today's agenda. One of them is the 10 o'clock item number 2. It's a hearing to consider and adopt the environmental finding of conformity.
Council President.
That one's been postponed.
Oh, that was continued?
Yes.
All right, good. The next thing then is we have unscheduled communication. So if any member of the public would like to come forward, and Barbara, you have turned in a card for unscheduled communication. If any other member of the public would like to talk about any item, now's your chance. All right, thank you. Yeah. No, one more little thing, joint authority.
Somebody left their glasses up here. Somebody left their phone up here, and I wish they'd claim them. Am I ready to go, boss?
But you're ready to go, Barbara.
Yes, on unscheduled communication.
Yeah.
Now, all this here is good, but it's not best. All this is doing is leading up to our next thing on the agenda about that $50 million, because the public haven't had no input. And the same people that's on this committee, like you, Mr. President, like Mr. Brand, like Mr. Baines, y'all on the same committees on everything around here. It's not fair. That's why you got to have independent people come in and make decisions for the city of Fresno, because you guys are not doing it. What I'm seeing here is like what my dad would say is malarkey. You know what that is? What the bird left on the limb. It's not fair. You guys been on the planning commission. Mr. Caparella, he planted us in this mess. Mr. Baines was on the planning commission 17 years, 15 with Cynthia Sterling, the rest of them, planners in this mess. They know what this is. Like we're stupid. I'm not stupid. Like I tell you, I got a lot of sense God gave me. But what I'm saying is the people didn't have a chance to, on this last item, when we got all these police officers, all these managers, all these people got this money, y'all went in closed session, you violated my Brown Act. And the job of the Mr. City Attorney, which we can fire anytime we get ready, the City Council can, supposed to keep you informed on what to do. You know that's the Brown Act violation when you don't let the public know what's coming up on the next item, and you guys just go off in the closed session, and you didn't even come back out because I see you walk over there and y'all talk. That talk don't matter with me. That's a violation. We got the conference with the labor, the airport, all these are directors, assistant directors, controllers, transportation, city managers, police department, public works department, fire department. These are managers, big positions that people should know what you're doing. But what I'm saying here is a conspiracy. You want to hide all this from the public and let me stop, and not even, you didn't even bring it on the loudspeaker. So what this last thing was going on here, they was working for department, other people that's not none of our department. These people here is the management people. That's not the City of Fresno resource management people. That's them people upstairs that you guys are working for and voting on. And we, election people, didn't elect you guys to do this. You was elected to do the business of the City of Fresno, and you're not doing it. All this is, and it's on your paper right here, is the resource director, the people with Swearingen and all these people bringing these projects down here, the general plan. That's not no general plan for the City of Fresno, and it tells you. So what I'm seeing you guys doing is against the law. It's somebody going to file some papers, and here's somebody's glasses, and I'm going to say have a good and blessed day.
Thanks, Barbara. All right, our last item of the day then is, well, do we have anybody else in the public that would like to make unscheduled communication? George? Okay. Then our last item then is a 11 o'clock meeting of the Joint Powers Financing Authority, and that the membership there is Mayor Swearingen, myself, and Acting President Baines. City Attorney, can we tackle all three of these items at the same time?
You could discuss them together, but I would vote separately.
Discuss them together and vote separately. Yeah. Yep. The first one then, number A, is a consent to and authorization of the investment of monies in local agency investment fund. Mike.
Good afternoon, board members. Mike Lima, City Controller, Finance Director. Before you is a resolution designating certain individuals within the Finance Department to conduct JFPA business with the Local Agency Investment Fund, or LAIF. LAIF is an office of the State Treasurer's Department that pools deposit monies from local governments and invests them. Because of the large amount that LAIF can invest, they earn a much better yield than any local agency can earn on its own in a money market type investment. LAIF requires a specific resolution from the board authorizing an agency staff to conduct business with them. As I was recently appointed to the controller position, this resolution is needed in order to allow myself the authorization to conduct JPFA business with LAIF. We recommend approval of this resolution. Three. You want me to keep going?
I would love to do.
Staff could go ahead and discuss all three items together.
Yes,
if you'd like to do
Okay.
that.
The second item before you is a resolution authorizing staff within the Finance Department to conduct business and sign documents on behalf of the JFPA. As I was recently appointed to the controller position, this resolution is needed in order to allow myself the authorization to conduct JFPA business. We recommend approval of this resolution as well. And the final one before you is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of up to $50 million in advances from the city for investment in LAIF. LAIF allows local agencies to deposit up to $50 million with them for investment. Under LAIF rules, both the City of Fresno and the JPFA are recognized as local agencies. Thus, by advancing the money to the JPFA, the city can effectively double its investment in LAIF to $100 million. This investment strategy has been used by the city for several years, and the City Council approved a $50 million advance on its November 20th, 2014 meeting. The resolution before you will accept the advance authorized by the City Council. It will also create a demand promissory note, which can be called by the city at any time, thus ensuring the city has ready access to the $50 million. And it also requires the monies advanced to the JPFA be invested with LAIF. We recommend approval of this resolution as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah. And so, Doug, on this item, is this just Oliver and myself voting?
That's correct. Typically, we allow all of the council to discuss the item, but just the two members voting.
Okay. So we're on to the discussion of these items. Are there any members of the public that would like to address this item, these items?
You concern yourself, I do, because you need to table this, go do some research on it, and put Mr. Baines and you, Mr. President, and the last ones on this paper, the only three, probably Mr. Brand, can sign these papers. They want to borrow all this money because the city of Fresno borrowed money on my mother's property out here at Hunt's Cafe and Walnut Garden before we was annexed into the city of Fresno through LAFCO. I got the papers from LAFCO. We don't even know if LAFCO is legal. I've sent a paper up here to the Planning Commission and asked about the fear of influence annexation. Do the profit sharing agreement, is it legal? The city attorney office going to ask me and say they can't answer nothing like that. Yes, they can. The Brown Act going to get them too. So on this one here, they want you guys to invest that $50 million to them. It's got to come from the state of California Treasury and people like this here, and it's got to have 3 people that goes to the bank and sign these papers for investment and for getting the money in and out to these folks. How you going to do that? Well, head for the city of Fresno, this here the investment group that what they got going on around here. Plus, these guys here that want this money is that these people upstairs, I just called their name, resource management people. And then when you're working for the city of Fresno, then you was working for redevelopment, the redevelopment agency and the agency board. How long is this going to go on? Fresno Joint Powers Finance Authority. And the city of Fresno is the name of Fresno Unified. It's Fresno City Unified District. I did hours of research up there, the place up there on the Department of Education, me and Susan. So there's a lot you guys don't know, and they working with you guys. We're supposed to have a general plan at final, not no updates. I never heard tell no updates till they start this mess. We supposed to them been approved the general plan, not go and do projects and get stuff that you want. Maybe social communism, something buys up all the lands and stuff. Then they put who they want to put in. But what about the United States? We the people. What about us? The one came through slavery. The Indians, my folks out here too, reservation. Everybody came across here, immigrants. What about these people that work hard for everything? We just can't give all our stuff away to a handful of people. And you guys don't do research. I read all the time. Like the police department right now is up in investigation for United Nations. All these black folks getting killed and shot around here, no jobs and stuff. Fresno State want to know how come there's no jobs in there? Those signs over there tell you Southeast. Over Brandy, over at the election department, said they got 77 boundaries overlapping, and I gave you the paper and all the rest. You guys are not doing your job. Somebody got to do the job of the city of Fresno, and what I'm saying, nobody is working for the city of Fresno, and we put you up here. Let them pay you that check. Let them pay your rent. When you guys get out of here, y'all ain't bankroll some money to go to jail with from these developers letting them pay you off, y'all going to be might be homeless. Your kids, what about your kids? What about your grandkids? You going to leave them all this debt? But we put so much water debt in our district over there. Banks pouring $100,000 water projects over there, and it's illegal. Do your job. Table this shit. Go do some research. They ain't no hurry.
Thanks, Barbara.
I'm going home now because I'm tired. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. See you next time.
I don't want to do y'all too much justice in one day, but I had to come down here. But I'm going to the Board of Supervisors because he sent me a letter saying he don't know. I asked him, could you expand the annexation if Flores is legal? He going to talk about he can't tell me this kind of information. I got it in writing. That's the worst for anybody to do, so give me something in writing.
Thanks,
I
Barbara.
got it. Cindy, here you put them up because somebody want to be responsible.
All right, then. Screen is clear. Oliver, it's just you and I voting. Does the city manager vote on behalf of the mayor or no?
No, just you two.
Would you like
one
to
would make a motion, one would second it, and then vote.
There's no discussion. Nobody's. I'll second. Aye. Motion passes 2-0. Yeah. And then the second item, I'll make a motion to approve. All in favor? Aye. All right. Third item. Can we make a joint motion? We make a joint motion and a joint second? Yeah. All in favor? All right, those 3 items passed unanimously. And that adjourns our meeting for today.